Okay, DOA should be in. Can you check? Let's see.
It's enough my. How did we get in? Huh? So we were on the list somewhere. They just didn't recognize.
Megan, we are on COH.
Okay, thank you for confirming.
Good morning, Peter. This is Captain Horniak, the FLC Pearl Harbor CO. Audio check, over.
Good morning, Captain. Peter Adler here. Nice to meet you, even if it's by Zoom.
You too as well, sir.
Is Captain Meyer there also with you and the Admiral?
Hey, Peter, this is Captain Meyer. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you. I'm actually on a separate computer, as is Admiral Cott.
Great. Well, we're going to get started at the top of the hour, so we'll wait a few minutes. We still have people joining. We're expecting a full house today.
Hi, good morning. Calling for Rear Admiral Cott's office, just doing a comm check.
Yep, loud and clear. Thank you.
Copy, thank you.
Hi, Peter.
Hi there. Good morning.
Hi, Peter, can you hear me?
Yes,
It's Melanie. You can hear me okay?
yes, I can. Hi, Melanie.
Okay, good.
Good to
Thanks.
see you.
I'm using a different computer. Thank you.
Is it my screen or do you have some green? I see a
It's
little-
probably me being green.
Good to see you again, Melanie. Thanks for
Okay,
joining.
good to see you too.
Peter, could we do a test of your volume, please?
Sure. This is Peter Adler. Does that work?
Is that loud enough?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. We have a lot of people on this and we'll probably have a few more jumping in. My name is Peter Adler and I have been brought in by the Department of Health to help make these FTAC meetings productive and useful and help accomplish the purposes of the state statute that governs this. My commitment, and I can speak for my colleague Megan, although you'll hear from her in a minute, my commitment and sole allegiance is to managing a fair and helpful public meeting, a helpful process And my commitment is to stay neutral and independent. And I do retain the right to ask questions if I don't understand something, as will anybody else. But this is going to be an important meeting for everybody. There's been a lot of news about Red Hill in the media, so we know this is going to be important. Megan, would you introduce yourself and then bring up our slides?
Yes, of course. So I'm Megan Brotherton, and I will be working behind the scenes to help with the technical aspects. And I will get the agenda slides up in just a moment.
So my job here is air traffic control, and hers, Megan's on the keyboards. That's what we're going to be doing in this meeting and trying to manage the whole thing properly. We're going to need to stay pretty focused and disciplined. We have 130, almost 130 people on this Zoom. Megan, you got the slides up? Here we go. I'm going to walk you, we're going to walk you through a few things. You've all seen the agenda, but here's the fundamentals. We're going to do a little welcoming and background. We have different people who will be starting us out. We have some carryover items that we will talk about. There will be technical updates on efforts since the last meeting. The FTAC committee members will have the first discussion. And as we've done before, we'll try to take questions for information and clarification and then comments. I understand that they merge together sometime, but very important that people get information and clarification. That's what this is partly about, how much it's about, totally about. Then we'll probably take a break in there, and if we can, and then have public comments and try and contain those to 2 minutes. And we'll have the same drill. Questions first for information and clarification, and then comments. And I may defer someone who brings in a big comment and a short question. I will get to it. We will track it along and do it. And then at the end, we'll talk about the next meeting. Next slide, Megan. So some basic procedures. I know you've all been in meetings with moderators and facilitators, but I just want to reiterate this, especially since we have such a big participation today. Our goal here, our primary goal, is really information exchange and learning, especially for people who are come with a question or want to understand something better. It's really important that they have that opportunity. We're going to stick with the agenda. So you've all been in meetings where there's attempted hijacks and taking the meeting off the rails. And that gets in the way of people getting the information that they came to the meeting for. So I may intervene in that if it continues. I'm trusting everybody to honor that. Civility is really important. We know this is a high profile, high stakes issue. So it's important that, and there's a lot of passion around it, but I'm encouraging everybody not to let this turn into a free for all. Finally, what I would say is that the Navy and DOH and EPA are involved in various litigation matters and investigations, and they will be constrained. They may be constrained in what they can and can't say about some of those matters. However, I also want to encourage EPA, DOH, and Navy to be as fully informative as they possibly can. This is a public meeting, and that's the goal for the FTAC, for the committee, and for the public who are listening in. Megan, over to you. Somebody's got some other sound coming through. You mute yourself.
Yes, if everyone would go on mute, that would be very helpful. I'm getting a lot of feedback. So please, if everyone can go on mute. So again, please stay muted until it's time for you to speak. It may be helpful also to keep your camera off, because this does allow for broader bandwidth, for one, especially for those with limited internet connections. So as Peter mentioned, there will be the public comment period, and everyone who would like to comment, you are welcome to put a comment in chat at any time during the meeting. But if you'd like to speak, please indicate that in your chat during the public comment part of the agenda. And you may also email comments directly to Perry, and her email address is here on the screen. It's thu.perry@doh.hawaii.gov. You may also submit private comments by doing a direct chat in the chat if you don't want your comment to be visible to everyone. So the 2-minute comment period will be indicated with a little verbal reminder. We are not going to use the timer on screen this time, but you'll have a verbal reminder that the 2 minutes is approaching. You may request me to allow you access for recording on your own computer. You must have a laptop or desktop because Zoom does not support local recording to iOS or Android devices. We are having at least one participant who wishes to record is having a glitch with that. So we're hoping that this does allow recording for everyone. There are some who are recording with no problem at this point. So please send me a chat and let me know if you would like to record locally. But this recording, the video recording of the meeting, as well as the chat, will be available after the meeting, and all of the slides that are presented. So, and then also written testimony you can submit to 2 Perry until November 21st. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Over to Kathy, Deputy Director Kathleen Ho from the Department of Health. If you would start us out, and I actually probably jumped the gun and did this first, but please go ahead.
All right, welcome everybody to the Virtual Fuel Tank Committee meeting. My name is Kathy Ho, and I am the Deputy Director of Environmental Health. I'll be chairing today's meeting, and I hope that someday we can meet in person soon. A bit of housekeeping. Unfortunately, today in the room that we're at, or in the building we're at, there's going to be a 10 o'clock fire drill or fire alarm testing. And so we tried to cancel it. They were unwilling to do so. So hopefully in the agenda, it's not our portion of it. So we'll just mute ourselves. And I hope that you guys will be understanding of that. And it will not disrupt, hopefully it will not disrupt this meeting. Before we begin, I really want to welcome all of you and thank you for taking the time to attend this meeting. Your participation is critical to the mission of the advisory committee. And that mission is to study the issues related to leaks of field constructed tanks at certain military facilities. I know we have a full agenda, and I want to remind all of us to be respectful of each other and each other's time. This will enable us to get through this very ambitious agenda. With that, I would like to start to take roll of the committee members. Since there are a few new committee members, I would like to, when I call on you, to please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. I will introduce myself first, followed by the congressional delegation, the state legislature, the Department of Defense, and our subject matter experts. Again, my name is Kathy Ho, and I began my position as a Deputy Director of Environmental Health on July 1st. Prior to this, I was with the Department of the Attorney General, practicing in environmental law. Okay, so let's go with the roll call. And from our congressional delegation, we have Ms. Dale Hahn from Senator Brian Schott's office. Is she on? Then from Senator Mazie Horona's office, we have Mr. Carlos Santana.
Hey, this is Carlos. Yes, I'm on.
Okay, thank you. From Representative Ed Cakes, we have Jacqueline Knopf.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. From Representative Kai Kahele, we have Mr. Ikaika Mahoe.
Ikaika's not on right now, but my name's Ethan. I'm here in the district office, and I hope Ikaika can join soon. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you very much. From the state legislature, we have Senator Mike Gabbard, who is
on. Good morning. I was the chair of the Energy and Environment Committee for 7 years, and currently I've been the chair of the Agriculture Environment Committee for 5 years.
Thank you. Welcome. From Representative Nicole Lowen.
Aloha, I'm here and chair of the House Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection.
Thank you, welcome. From Department of Defense, we have Captain Gordy Meyer.
Hi, good morning. Captain Gordy Meyer. I'm the regional engineer for Admiral Cott at Navy Region Hawaii, as well as the commanding officer for Naval Systems Command Hawaii.
And I notice Admiral Cott is also here.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for joining.
Hi, Kathy. Sorry, this is Jackie from Congressman Case's office. I also have Matthew Bernard, who is in our DC office, for the record. Thank you.
Great, welcome. From our subject matter experts, we have from DLNR, Kaleo Manuel.
Aloha, Kaleo Manuel, Deputy with the Commission on Water Resource Management.
Ernest Lau from the Board of Water Supply.
Aloha, everybody. Hope everybody's doing good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan Imata from the Commission on Water Resources.
Good morning. Hydrologic Program Manager for Groundwater Regulation Branch. I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Melanie Lau from the Moanaloa Valley Community Association.
Hi, that would be me. I'm here.
Thank you. Ashley Nishihara from the Protect Our Aquifer Association.
Yep, hi, present.
Great, thank you. And from the EPA, Gabriela Carvalho.
Yes, hi, I'm Gabriela Carvalho. I am the new EPA Red Hill Project Coordinator, and so it is my role to coordinate EPA's involvement in our work to oversee the Red Hill AOC. So nice to be here. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Right, then I would like to introduce Joanna Cito, who is the Administrator for the Environmental Management Division, who will give us a review of the duties of FTAC.
Good morning, everybody. The purpose of the committee is listed on page 4 of the agenda and as presented in Hawaii Revised Statutes, section 342L 62. I will read it for everybody's use. The advisory committee shall study issues related to leaks of field constructed underground fuel storage tanks at the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility, Kuahua Peninsula, Pacific Missile Range Facility, Barking Sands, Hickam POL Annex, and Schofield Barracks Military Reservation. The advisory committee shall consider 1, the short and long-term effects of leaks of the fuel tanks, including effects relating to the health of residents, safe drinking water, and the environment. 2, response strategies to mitigate the effects of leaks from fuel tanks. 3, methods to improve communication between the United States Navy, Air Force, and Army, the state, any local board of water supply, and the public in the event of a leak of any fuel tank. 4, groundwater tests results in relation to the surrounding areas of fuel tank facilities with a particular emphasis on the groundwater near the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility. 5, the implications of shutting down any fuel tank facility. And 6, updates on progress toward meeting goals of agreement between the state, the affected country, and the federal government. B, no later than 20 days before the convening of each regular session, the advisory committee shall submit a report of its findings, including groundwater test results and recommendations, including any proposed legislation to the legislature. Since the start of FTAC, the membership of the committee and scope has changed from the statutory requirement. U.S. Army and U.S. Air Force no longer own or operate field constructed tanks and therefore are not represented at the meetings. 2 members of the congressional delegation, while present, have opted out of being official members due to potential conflict of interest. Senator Schatz and Representative Case. Schofield Barracks is listed in statute. However, there are no field constructed tanks at this location. Therefore, this facility has been removed from further discussions. The Department of Health is committed to conducting the FTAC meeting twice a year. The last FTAC meeting was held on May 20, 2021, and we would like to schedule the next one in spring 2022. We will discuss the meeting schedule again towards the end of the meeting. Transcripts and/or video recordings of the previous FTAC meetings are available on our underground storage tank webpage. The video recording of this meeting will be made available to the public on our website in approximately 1 week from today. The contested case hearing for the Red Hill permit is not a point of discussion for this meeting, and the details of which will not be discussed. We are, however, providing the following status of the proceedings. On behalf of the Department of Health, Environmental Health Administration, EHA, the Department of the Attorney General requested a 30-day extension of the deadline to file exceptions to the hearing officer's recommended decision and request an opportunity to present arguments. The request was granted by the hearing officer, Lu Chang, on October 15, 2021. The hearings officer extended the deadline to November 19, 2021 for all parties to file exceptions to the hearing officer's recommended decision and order for the contested case on the state permit to operate the Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility. In the request, the Deputy Attorney General stated that a motion for remand would be forthcoming. The EHA staff are unable to comment as neither the exceptions nor the motion to remand have been filed. The department issued a notice of violation order in response to our compliance inspection report. A summary of the violations will be discussed later in the meeting when, I'm sorry. The department issued a notice of violation and order in response to our compliance inspection. A summary of the violations will be discussed later in the meeting when we speak to the compliance inspection. Based on information provided by the water purveyors on their drinking water monitoring, drinking water at the Red Hill Shaft, Halava, and Moanalua meets all state and federal drinking water standards and continues to be safe to drink. On October 19, 2021, the Navy provided the DOH preliminary data indicating that total petroleum hydrocarbon as oil was detected in their pre-chlorination sample from the Red Hill Shaft in 2 samples during the month of August 2021 that exceeded the department's environmental action level. The highest detected concentration was 540 parts per billion, while the EAL is 500 parts per billion. Preliminary data received for TPH oil for the month of September so far indicates that TPH oil is not detected at concentrations above 150 parts per billion. While TPH oil was marginally detected above EALs, the drinking water toxicity concentration level for TPHO is 2,400 ppb. The EALs are considered to be conservative. The presence of a chemical at concentrations in excess of an EAL does not necessarily indicate that adverse impacts to human health or the environment are occurring. This simply indicates that a potential for adverse risk may exist and that additional evaluation is warranted. Additional investigation is ongoing to determine the potential source of TPHO, as this sample was not collected directly from groundwater. Thus, the portion of the system between groundwater and the pre-chlorination sample collection site could be a possible source. Per additional investigations preliminary results, TPHO has been detected at exterior wells such as Red Hill Monitoring Well 16 and 19. The department will continue to oversee groundwater sampling at Red Hill Shaft and review groundwater sampling data as it is reported by the Navy. At this time, I'd like to introduce our facilitator, Peter Adler, who introduced himself. Thank you, Peter.
Kathy and Joanna, thank you so much for that briefing and that background. I've already covered the ground rules and our agenda. If I need to do that for latecomers, we'll take a minute to do that later on. But let's proceed and I'm going to turn things over to Gabriela Carvalho and Roxanne Kwan to just give us a snapshot of the AOC. This is for education. Some people are just new to this. So if you could give us a little rundown on what is the AOC.
Great, and we have some slides we're going to be showing, and Roxanne is going to kick us off.
Megan will pull up the slides for us.
Hey, good morning. I am Roxanne Kwan. I am the interim project coordinator. I hope you all can hear me. If not, please, I guess, raise your hand or put a comment in the chat box. So I know the last time there was some difficulty in hearing us because we had our mask on. Okay, so like I said, I am Roxanne. I am the interim project coordinator. With me is Miss Gabriela Cavallo. She is the EPA's Red Hill project coordinator, and she replaces Steve Linder, who recently retired. So to start off with, the Hawaii Administrative Rules, Chapter 11 to 80.1 regulates underground storage tanks, which includes airport hydrant system and also the fuel constructed tanks like those at the Red Hill facility. The Hawaii rules were amended in 2018 in response to EPA's update of their regulations, and that's where EPA added their Energy Policy Act requirements there. One of the amendments was to introduce additional requirements for fuel constructed tanks and for airport hydrant system. In July this year, the state rules were amended to clarify the July 2018 regulations. We had a public notice back in October 2019 and a public hearing in December 2019. In August of this year, the new regulation that was amended in July was put on our website in August. This regulation that was amended to July 2021, there was no changes relating to fuel constructed tanks or airport hydrant system. The intent of rules at that time was to clarify, make some clarification in the July 2018 rules. Megan, can you go back to the first slide? Yes, thank you. So as you see, there's some overlap between the administrative order of consent and the Hawaii administrative rules. There's some overlap between these two frameworks. Wait, hold on a second. Between these two frameworks. The first is that the state regulations require the fuel constructed tanks to be upgraded to secondary containment or utilize a design which the director determines to be protective of human health and environment by 2038, or it needs to be closed. Other similar overlap would be release detection that's required, and also any release response activities needs to be reported to the Department of Health. Okay, so that's all I have. So Ms. Cavallo will then talk about the roles and functions of the administrative order consent.
Great. And Megan, would you please go to slide 3? So I'll be presenting an overview of the administrative order and consent and current work being conducted by AOC parties. So what is the AOC? It is an enforceable agreement between the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the State Department of Health, the U.S. Navy, and the Defense Logistics Agency. The AOC was signed back in 2015 following a 27,000-gallon fuel spill from the Red Hill facility in 2014. The primary objective of the AOC is to take steps to ensure that the groundwater resource in the vicinity of the facility is protected and to ensure that the facility is operated and maintained in an environmentally protective manner. Slide 4. So I'd like to provide a quick overview of the roles of the 4 AOC parties. So the Navy and the Defense Logistics Agency are the owners and operators of the Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility. They're responsible for the design, operation, maintenance, and monitoring and release response actions of the facility. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Health are the regulatory agencies. Our roles are to enforce environmental laws and regulations and to oversee the implementation of work under the administrative order and consent. Next slide. The AOC document includes the main body of the administrative order on consent, and it has an attached scope of work. And the scope of work is broken out into 8 sections that cover project management, tank infrastructure improvements, and environmental investigation and remediation. So work under all of these sections has been going on since 2015, and this work continues through the end of the AOC in 2037. So there's been a lot of activity over the past 6 years under all of these sections, but today I'm going to provide an update on the work that under these sections that AOC parties are actively working on. So this is going to be highlights, not a lot of detail, but I did want to let you all know that information about work under each of these sections is available on the EPA website. On slide 6, I'd like to provide an overview of work under sections 3 and 4, the tank upgrades alternatives and release detection and tank tightness testing sections. So the purpose of the tank upgrades alternatives section of the AOC scope of work is to identify and evaluate various tank upgrade alternatives for the facility, and then select and implement the best available practicable technology and tank inspection, repair, and maintenance procedures that can be applied to those in-service tanks. The goal is to prevent releases to the environment. So the tank upgrades alternatives is reevaluated once every 5 years. And that 5-year cycle begins at the approval of the initial tank upgrades alternatives decision document approval, which is a point where the regulators are at this point in time is evaluating that submission. Section number 4, the purpose is to document the current release detection systems and tank tightness testing procedures that are used at the facility, and evaluate these procedures and implement any proposed modifications. So to cover some recent history of work under these two sections is that in 2019, the Navy and the Defense Logistics Agency submitted a tank upgrades alternatives and release detection decision document to the regulators. That same year, EPA and DOH solicited public comment on those documents. And in 2020, EPA and the Department of Health issued a notice of deficiencies letter. Just this year, in August, the Navy and the Defense Logistics Agency submitted a supplement to their 2019 tank upgrades alternatives decision document. And now the regulators are reviewing that submission and are due to issue a decision. Moving on to slide 7, covers section 5 of the AOC scope of work. And this is around corrosion and metal fatigue practices. So the purpose of this section is to evaluate the possibility and extent of corrosion and metal fatigue, as well as practices to control corrosion and metal fatigue at the facility. A recent history of work under this section is that in 2019, the Navy and the Defense Logistics Agency submitted a destructive testing results report to the regulators. And then in 2020, the regulatory agency submitted a letter documenting that EPA and Department of Health did not concur with the Navy's findings and that additional work would be needed. In 2021, the Navy and the Defense Logistics Agencies submitted a 5.4 execution plan amendment that describes these 10 work products related to corrosion and metal fatigue. And now the regulators are reviewing that submission and are due to issue a decision on that document. So this work for corrosion and metal fatigue practices really fits into the overall AOC work, as the investigation of corrosion at the facility will lead to improvements in the Navy's tank inspection, repair, and maintenance program. On slide number 8, I'd like to provide an overview of the work underway related to the risk and vulnerability assessment. So the purpose of this section of the AOC scope of work is to assess the level of risk the facility may pose to groundwater and drinking water aquifers. The risk information that's developed from this section feeds into tank and facility upgrade decisions. So basically, this section's intended to look at the entire facility and identify potential vulnerabilities in the facility that should be corrected to prevent possible future releases. So some history under this section is that in 2019, the Navy and the Defense Logistics Agency submitted a quantitative risk and vulnerability assessment report, phase 1. And phase 1 covered risks associated with internal events such as system integrity and human factors. In 2019, EPA and the Department of Health conditionally approved phase 1 and asked for the scope of works for the next phases. So then in 2020, the Navy and Defense Logistics Agency submitted a revised 8.2 phase 2 scope of work. And this scope of work for the risk and vulnerability assessment is to cover fire, flood, seismic activities, and other external events. So in 2021,
Gabriella, we're getting a little background noise. I'm going to ask everybody who's not speaking to please mute themselves if you would.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. In 2021, EPA and the Department of Health issued a notice of deficiency on the scope of work. And so now the Navy and the Defense Logistics Agency is going to be working on submitting a revision to the phase 2 scope of work. And so just to put this work into context, the results of work under this section will identify areas of the facility that present potential risks of releases to the environment. And information from the section can then be used to support future facility upgrade decisions. Moving on to slide 9. This slide kind of covers recent work related to environmental investigation remediation sections of the AOC scope of work. The purpose of section 6 is to determine the feasibility of alternatives for investigating and remediating releases from the facility, including the remediation of the January 2014 release and any future releases. Section 7 of the AOC scope of work, the purpose is to monitor and characterize the flow of groundwater around the facility. And this information will be used to update the existing groundwater protection plan, and work includes the installation of additional monitoring wells. There's been extensive work over the past 6 years under this environmental section. I'm just going to cover a brief history of recent activities. The 2 key deliverables that were submitted by the Navy in 2020 were the groundwater flow model report and the investigation remediation of releases report. EPA and DOH are still reviewing these documents. We provided preliminary comments to the Navy and the groundwater flow model working group. This is a working group that's made up of subject matter experts, including all of the AOC parties, the U.S. Geological Survey, the Commission on Water Resource Management, and the Board of Water Supply. In general, regulatory agencies' position is that the groundwater flow models do not at this time provide a reliable basis to evaluate potential aquifer impacts or the risk posed from releases at the Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility. EPA and DOH are due to issue a formal letter and a decision on these documents, and we're anticipating that this calendar year. Please move on to slide 10. So those slides that I just presented cover current work under the AOC scope of work. I'd like to quickly orient you to this slide and hopefully helps explain some of the dates that are often discussed at FTAC meetings, specifically the dates 2037, 2038, and 2045. So the administrative order and consent was signed in 2015, and it requires that all tanks at the Red Hill facility be upgraded to the best available practical technology by 2037. So tanks that are upgraded, tanks in which BAPT has not been successfully applied shall be taken out of use, temporarily closed, and emptied of all regulated substances by 2037. The AOC does include an option to extend the date of tank upgrades to 2042. Moving on to this orange triangle arrow. So Hawaii state regulations were revised in 2018, and they require that all field constructed tanks have secondary containment or utilize a design which the director determines is protective of human health and the environment by 2038 or defuel. And then finally, the Navy has made, and the Defense Logistics Agency has made a commitment in their 2019 tank upgrades alternatives decision document to implement secondary containment at the Red Hill facility or defuel by 2045. So we recognize that these dates do not align, and they are a current topic of discussion among AOC parties. So the final slide contains contact information for Roxanne and myself. That concludes our overview of the Red Hill Administrative Order and Consent. All of the documents that I've discussed in this slide presentation are contained on the EPA Red Hill webpage. And I hope you found this presentation useful. I'll turn it back over to Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriella and Roxanne. Thanks for that briefing. So we're going to move on the agenda and talk about the carryover items. And Tu Perry has been coordinating this. I don't know, Tu, if you want to introduce yourself and say something. We're going to hear primarily from Roxanne Kwan and from Captain Horniak. Tu, any comments before we jump in?
So good morning, everybody. My name is Tu Perry. I am the Public Participation Coordinator for the Underground Storage Tank Program for the Department of Health. At this time, I'd like to highlight a number of carryover items from our last FTAC that was in May 20th. In addition to these carryover items, there are listed 2 smaller releases that were not carryover items, but they were issues that the FTAC chair felt appropriate to include in this year's meeting. Most of the items are for the Navy to respond to, including the May 6th release, Hotel Pier, Kilo Pier release, the GTT&A study, and also the UH contract details that were requested from the last meeting. But before we get to that, DOH is going to address the first listed item, which is the DOH compliance inspection of Red Hill. So for that update, I'll turn it over to Roxanne Kwan again, of the supervisor of the UST program.
Hey, good morning again. This is an update of our routine underground storage tank compliance inspection. Back in late September to early October 2020, we conducted an inspection of the Red Hill facility. It was a 2-week long inspection with a team of about 6 people. It was our first DOH routine compliance inspection after the new fuel constructed tank regulations became effective. The inspection of the Red Hill facility is not like our typical service station where there is 3 10,000-gallon underground storage tanks. The Red Hill facility has 20 12.5 million gallons fuel constructed tanks, 4 surge tanks, roughly about 400,000 gallons each, a pump house, airport hydrant system, 2 product recovery tanks, 5 piers, and all the associated piping, pipelines and piping that goes with it. At the facility, at the Red Hill facility, we have reviewed the maintenance records, the tank and line tightness testing reports, any repairs that was done, release detection records and alarm records, corrosion reports for the pipelines for the record that's related to the time period of the inspections. After our inspections and review of the records, we issued a request for information in June of this year, 2021. And in the letter, we requested additional information and posed clarifying questions. We have received a Navy's response in August of 2021. After review of all the information we got, the department has issued a notice of violation order on Tuesday, October 26, and the penalty amount was roughly $325,000. The violations is a result of our routine underground storage tank compliance inspection and is being addressed separate and apart from the contested case. The 5 counts that was in the novels are failure to operate and maintain ongoing corrosion protection to metal components of the portion of the Navy's tank and piping that contain regulated substance and are in contact with the ground. The second count is failure to perform a line tightness test of repaired piping before a return to service. The third count, failure to perform an annual liquid tightness test on spill prevention equipment to prevent releases to the environment. The fourth count is failure to perform an adequate visual walkthrough inspection of hydrant pit. And the fifth count, the last, is a failure to maintain adequate release detection for the 2 double wall underground product recovery storage tanks. So the total penalty that came out was $352,182. The Navy will now need to return into compliance and pay for the penalty. Okay. 2, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Roxanne. So next is for the Navy updates on those particular carryover items and related issues. Do you want me to hand it back to you, Peter? And then you
Yeah, and I think this is going to go to Captain Horniak. If you would, Captain, why don't you give us a briefing on those carryover items from the last meeting?
Thank you, Peter, and to all the FTAC participants. I appreciate the opportunity to provide an update on the carryover items from the last FTAC. As the commanding officer of Fleet Logistics Center Pearl Harbor, one of my responsibilities is the operation of the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility in a manner that protects the environment while safely meeting the operational needs of the military, the Hawaii National Guard, as well as supporting the state of Hawaii during natural disasters. Before we move on to the next carryover item, I would like to provide a few comments for amplifying information to the compliance inspection. As was mentioned, the Hawaii Department of Health completed the compliance inspection in October of 2020. At the time of the inspection, no significant non-compliance issues were noted. The DOH further stated we would have the final report by January 1st, 2021. It has been 12 months since the compliance inspection, and we still have not received the inspection report. We just received the notice from DOH on Tuesday with no prior communication on possible violations. We meet with DOH representatives on a regular and frequent basis. We are reviewing the notice for context and our response. But as always, the Navy does remain committed to maintaining safety in all operations of the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility and to timely communication with state and federal regulators. Moving on to the May 6th investigation. During the last FTAC, we were not able to comment because it was still an open investigation. The investigation is now complete, and we are sharing the investigation findings. On October 1st, 2021, in response to a request from both EPA and the Hawaii Department of Health, we did provide a preliminary update regarding the ongoing investigation. The release came from a fuel pipeline in the lower access tunnel of the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility, not the 20 tanks central to the facility. The cause of the release was operator error. Specifically, the system operator did not close all valves as specified in the operations order. These misaligned valves caused a vacuum and a pressure surge, which damaged two pipeline couplings and resulted in the release of fuel. 1,618 gallons of fuel was released and 1,580 gallons were recovered. The 38 gallons that were not recovered either evaporated or absorbed into the concrete floor of the tunnel or was washed into the soil vapor monitoring ports during the cleanup process. However, and again, this is important to note, the Red Hill fuel containment system properly monitored, detected, and collected the fuel release as designed. The captured fuel was collected within the collection sumps and pumped into the collection tank. This is not a tank issue. All the tanks in the Red Hill Bulk Storage Fuel Facility have passed tank tightness testing conducted after the release from the pipeline. Since the release, the Navy has taken corrective actions to improve safety in all aspects of Red Hill operations. The Navy has provided redacted copies of the full investigation reports to both EPA and the DOH this past Monday, October 25th. We have also made the public aware of the investigation results via news releases and subsequent follow-on media articles. A copy of these redacted reports can be located on the Red Hill website. Moving on to Kilo Pier. On July 16, 2021, a release of F-76 marine diesel into the harbor from Kilo Pier was identified. We immediately notified the Department of Health on the initial sighting of the release, and since that time have worked closely with DOH throughout the entire process to identify the source of the release, stop it, and clean the area affected by the release. The Navy has estimated that approximately 150 gallons of product was released. All released product was contained within the booms, and approximately 110 gallons of product was recovered. The remaining product evaporated. It's important that to note that F-76 or marine diesel breaks down quickly when exposed to the environment, specifically sunlight and wave action, and currently no recoverable product remains at the site. The remaining fuel in the pipeline was immediately evacuated and the pipeline was isolated. All release response activities have been completed in accordance with Hawaii administrative rules. The source of the hole in the pipe was caused by corrosion, approximately a 2-centimeter hole in diameter. The kilo, moving on to hotel pier. We have been in continual dialogue with the Department of Health concerning the release at Hotel Pier. Unfortunately, I am not able to discuss the Hotel Pier release at this time. Opponents of the Red Hill underground storage tank permit application have advised that they intend to raise this issue in the context of the contested case, and the Navy will respond at that time. Concerning the GTTNA and the University of Hawaii updates, those will be addressed by Captain Meyer during the technical brief. Thank you very much.
You're muted, Peter.
You're muted.
If you would, could you speak to the GTTNA study, which was also a carryover item, and the UH contract, which is, I think, underway? If you're not ready to do that, they can go into the technical updates that come next.
No, Peter, thank you for that. Captain Meyer will address both of those as part of the technical brief.
Okay, thank you. So with that, let's move right into the technical updates. And I know we're going to begin with some comments from Admiral Cott and then over to Captain Meyer, and you may bring in others as you need.
Good morning, Peter.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today and about the Navy's work in Hawaii. As we all know, we're all well aware, a vital strategic location in the Pacific. What we do here has an important impact, not just on the United States, but also helps create a free and open Indo-Pacific region, ensuring sea lanes remain open for commerce and merchant traffic. As Commander, Navy Region Hawaii, my job is to take care of our facilities, our sailors and their families, and their entire workforce, many who are from Hawaii. Above all else, this means operating safely and protecting what is so important to all of us, and that's our environment, our community, our nation, and our water. I also take very seriously our shared responsibilities to operate all our facilities safely. And one of the vital aspects of our working is keeping our fleet and our aircraft ready and prepared to deploy as necessary. And as we all know, recent headlines from this summer to show how important those forces are in responding to an emerging China and Russian forces deploying farther out of area, even close to the waters of Hawaii. We have a responsibility to operate Red Hill safely and ensure the systems work. I assure you that we continue to work closely with our state and federal regulators on the way ahead. I value the collaboration and teamwork and confident as we work together, we can form a better solution, focusing on mutual respect and our shared goals. I have the honor and privilege of introducing, I know you met Captain Horniak and Captain Meyer, two immensely talented commanding officers who are dedicated to this effort. Please know that we value everybody's feedback, input, and the collaboration and the opportunity to speak at this FTAC, which is very important to our mutual goals. And without further delay, I'll turn it over to the commanding officer of Navy Facilities Hawaii, Captain Gordy Meyer.
Okay, thank you, Admiral. I appreciate that. And Peter, I believe we're going to be pushing some slides, if we could pull those up.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And so, again, good morning, everyone. And today, I'll provide an update to the FTAC as required by the Hawaii statute on field constructed underground fuel storage tanks, specifically at the Hickam Fuel Annexes, Kuahua Peninsula, Pacific Missile Range Facility, and the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility. We look forward to the discussion, which underscores the close work with the regulators, as well as key stakeholders to identify the best solutions possible moving forward. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Again, today, we'll talk about three categories of tanks that we'll be briefing to the committee, which will include the following. Those tanks permanently out of use, specifically the Hickam POL annexes. Those tanks that are temporarily out of use, the Kuahua Peninsula. And third, the tanks currently in use at Pacific Missile Range Facility and the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility. Again, Red Hill has 18 operational tanks currently in use or going through the clean, inspect, and repair process. The other two tanks, tanks 1 and 19, are temporarily out of use. You can move to slide 3. There are 2 sites associated with the Hickam fuel annexes that are permanently out of use. There are really no new updates since the last FTAC meeting. Pop-up remediation and monitoring continues under the guidance of our regulators, and the site poses no unacceptable health risks. Move to slide 4. Kuahua Peninsula tanks are out of use and are pending decommissioning. In the May FTAC, I had briefed work was in progress to secure the tanks, and that work would be completed this fall. The Navy has completed that work as previously briefed. The work to empty and clean the tanks was completed in August. We currently do not have a timeline for development of the area and hence no timeline for demolition. Then move to slide 5. Again, there are no changes to the Pacific Missile Range Facility tanks since the last FTAC brief. The 5 tanks that remain in service have all been appropriately inspected, are in compliance with API requirements, American Petroleum Institute requirements, that for impressed concurrent cathodic protection systems. All active tanks are equipped with visual and audible alarms for spill detection and prevention. So next, slide 6. Again, as requested by the Department of Health, the next series of slides on Red Hill are structured by, first, completed items since the last FTAC, second, ongoing actions, and third, targeted items for completion prior to the next FTAC. So we move to slide 7. We'll talk about what has been completed, and we have a long list of items accomplished since the last FTAC meeting in May earlier this year. Again, all tanks in service continue to pass semi-annual and annual tank tightness testing. Semi-annual tank tightness testing was completed in May of this year, with all 14 in-service tanks passing. And the frequency of tank tightness testing increased to annually in 2015 versus the previously every other 2 years prior to 2015. The Navy continues to conduct tank tightness testing 2 times per year, which is twice that required by regulations. The Navy continues to pursue installation of additional monitoring wells to better monitor the surrounding area and understand groundwater flow in the region of the Red Hill area. One additional monitoring well, well 12A, was installed since the last FTAC, increasing the number of monitoring wells to 20. The Navy and Department of Health continue to conduct annual water quality reports demonstrating we have safe and healthful drinking water, as briefed earlier in this meeting. Navy amended Section 5.4 execution plan and submitted it to the regulators in August of 2021 with updates to the schedule, including additional milestones and meetings with regulators to increase transparency and collaboration throughout the process. As also briefed earlier, the Navy submitted the TUA supplemental document to the regulators and the public in August of 2021 to provide amplifying information to the original tank upgrade alternative decision document submitted in 2019. In an effort to better collaborate, the Navy has been working with regulators on multiple initiatives, including our continuous soil vapor monitoring pilot study and our groundwater flow via a series of technical working groups. At the last FTAC, I briefed that we would begin installing continuous soil vapor monitoring equipment prior to the next FTAC. We have followed through with that and completed the initial pilot equipment installation. Preliminary startup of the continuous soil vapor monitoring pilot tests began in August to identify and resolve issues to get the system to operate as intended. Official data collection is anticipated to begin after the system is running smoothly and quality assurance tests are completed. In the third quarter of 2021, we released several audio casts. The Red Hill Emergency Disaster Support to Hawaii, we provided an AOC update, and a Soil Vapor Monitoring 101. These have been added to our Red Hill website. Now, unfortunately, due to COVID, it prevented us from other venues for our updates in between the FTAC, and we look forward to hopefully meeting in person in the future. The 16th Groundwater Flow Modeling Working Group meeting was held last week and AOC parties, plus USGS, Department of Land and Natural Resources, and Board of Water Supply met to provide the stakeholders an overview of the Navy's groundwater flow model report, which was submitted in August of 2020, and to obtain additional feedback from the agencies, the USGS's technical expert, and the Navy's groundwater model as we work to obtain approval of the report submitted in August of 2020. If we move to the next slide then, I'll cover what's ongoing. And so this slide addresses several items that we have ongoing and ongoing AOC actions. So annual tank tightness tests began in October 5th of this month, and will continue through mid-November. We continue finalizing the procurement process for obtaining new continuous soil detection equipment by permanently installing tank tightness equipment. We are expecting to award a contract by the fall of next year to install this equipment. Also, as previously stated, the Risk Vulnerability Assessment Phase 2 Statement of Work was submitted to the regulators in December of 2020. Navy is currently working on some RFI responses, request for information, received from the regulators in September of 2021, and will officially respond by the required November 2nd deadline. The initial testing phase of real-time solar vapor monitoring pilot project began in August, as briefed on the last slide. Issues are being worked out and lessons learned to ensure a smooth implementation of the potential full-scale system. Data collection of the pilot test at 3 tanks will begin after the system is running smoothly and quality assurance tests are completed. As part of the University of Hawaii initiative, UH installed a weather station on Red Hill that will support the continuous soil vapor monitoring pilot test and data obtained. It will provide data download and time tuning of real weather stations while we continue the soil vapor monitoring in conjunction together. Again, Navy continues to move forward on a promising secondary containment solution. The initial assessment stage was just recently completed, and I'll provide additional details on our secondary containment efforts in the following slides. The Navy is in the process of installing Red Hill monitoring wells 17 and 17A. Completion of these wells will bring our monitoring well network to a total of 22. Navy is working on collaborating with EPA and DOH to begin in-well tests to better understand how groundwater flow and flows around the facility and the surrounding area of Red Hill. Our partnership with the University of Hawaii continues utilizing Hawaii's best and brightest by leveraging their talent and experts for technological applications at Red Hill. I also have separate slides further discussing the UH initiatives. We continue regular environmental monitoring, which involves quarterly groundwater monitoring well sampling, monthly soil vapor monitoring at 2 to 3 locations under each tank, and monthly water interface measurements. If we go to the next slide, I'll then talk about the clean water that has been discussed earlier already and briefed by DOH. Since the last FTAC, new water quality control reports were published by both the Navy and the Board of Water Supply. The Navy released the latest water quality report for Red Hill in June of 2021. As expected, and I'll reiterate what was previously stated earlier, water quality reports from both of the Navy and the Board of Water Supply continue to indicate the water is safe. Okay, if we would move to the next slide. Once again, a significant amount of work is expected to be completed before the committee meets again in 2022. The Navy continues to conduct semi-annual tank tightness testing every 6 months, again, twice as frequently as required by regulation. We continue our extensive environmental sampling. There are currently 4 deliverables in the review process with the regulators, and Gabrielle highlighted those very clearly in her brief. We'll be working closely with regulators to provide an amendment to the Risk Vulnerability Assessment Phase 2 Statement of Work, and as stated, we'll provide that response as required by November. Again, as previously discussed earlier, Navy has initiated a pilot project to install continuous soil vapor monitoring equipment at 3 Red Hill tanks. Currently, the Navy takes soil vapor monitoring samples monthly. We are looking to achieve continuous real-time soil vapor monitoring with this new pilot program. By the next FTAC, we will have finished collecting baseline data for further evaluation and possible expansion of the effort. Additionally, we continue our efforts to install permanent tank tightness testing equipment and again plan to have that contract awarded by this time next year. Navy plans on installing additional 2 monitoring wells in early 2022. Again, those wells 17 and 17A. Again, this will bring the monitoring well network from 20 to 22. The picture in the lower right you see here is one of our typical monitoring wells. The next slide will provide an overview of Navy's extensive groundwater monitoring network. Again, as you can see, as you can see in this slide, a sentinel network of monitoring wells surround the Red Hill facility. After the completion of our 22nd well next year, with the completion of monitoring wells 17 and 17A, Navy has 8 additional wells planned to bring the total number of monitoring wells to 30. We are striving for completion of these wells by 2023. However, we expect some challenges to exist with that timeline. The additional wells planned by 2023 are located on and off the Red Hill facility. The wells planned off of the location bring different challenges for access and permitting, which could impact the timeline pending land use approval. The Navy is working with regulators on possible alternatives, if needed, on non-Navy property, in case non-Navy property approval is not obtained. The Navy regularly tests groundwater on all network wells and the Red Hill shaft, and drinking water, again, at the Red Hill shaft remains safe for drinking. We then move to slide 12. Again, we are currently on schedule for our clean, inspect, and repair program with enhanced procedures and best available technology. Tank 17 recently completed the clean, inspect, repair process this past August. Tanks 13, 14, and 18 are currently undergoing the clean, inspect, and repair process. We will continue to take additional tanks out of service to undergo the clean, inspect, repair process as each tank is returned to service. With tank 17 completed, tank 4 is next to begin the clean, inspect, repair process early next year. The Navy's CIR, or clean, inspect, repair schedule, focuses on the oldest tanks, those with the most dated inspection, to reduce any possible risks. And if we move to slide 13, we continue to enhance our layers of protection with the greatest focus on prevention. The plan for tank upgrades, as laid out in the TUA decision document, to employ multiple and extensive layers for protection, to prevent, detect, and lessen the risks. The tank upgrade alternative supplemental, as we discussed, which was released in August of 2021, provides amplifying information for the importance of each of these efforts and how the systems of systems work together. The agreement between EPA, DOH, and the Navy and DLA, as outlined in the AOC, is to have all tanks upgraded with an approved BAP by 2037, as outlined in Gabriella's slides. The proposed tank upgrade alternative plan fulfills the requirements of the 2015 Administrative Order on Consent, or AOC, between the Navy, DLA, and EPA and DOH to minimize the risk of future releases and to ensure the Red Hill facility continues to operate in an environmentally protective manner. Navy acknowledges the decision letter received in October of 2020 from the regulators requesting additional amplifying information to support our TUA decision document. And again, we submitted that amplifying information with our supplement in this past August. All of our efforts work together from prevention, detection, and mitigation to protect the environment, and these efforts add up to a system of systems that provide multiple layers of protection. We may now transition to the next slide, slide 14. This slide was also briefed at the last FTAC and showed the feedback process between the regulators and Navy on required AOC documents. And you can see that in the history that Gabriella had briefed earlier. Again, I won't go into the details of all of the section and items that have been previously briefed by Gabriella. But again, the Navy is waiting feedback on several of these, and we will still move forward with efforts that improve prevention, detection, and mitigation at Red Hill as we await regulator approval. Again, Navy has received the feedback on the risk vulnerability assessment statement of work, and we work to provide that feedback again by early November. Okay, the next slide, slide 15, will cover GTTNA and the questions and discussions for additional information on this effort. In the tank upgrade alternatives decision document, the Navy committed to installing secondary containment in Red Hill by 2045 or removing the fuel from the Red Hill underground storage tanks. Again, this is an uncaveated commitment to install secondary containment. At the time, the Navy was researching for a way to install secondary containment in Red Hill, but the 3 secondary containment options in the TUA decision document did not rank higher across the 18 attributes used for selecting the best available practical technology, or BAT, as agreed to by the regulators. As briefed at the previous FTAC, the Navy had then began partnering with NAVFAC, Navy Facilities Engineering Command, Expeditionary Warfare Center, and the Department of Defense's Innovation Unit, and Gaz Transport Technogaz North America, or as we know them as GTTNA. We began that coordination last September to investigate using a system typically used to line ocean-going tankers for storage of liquefied natural gas, or LNG. GTTNA is an industry leader in the secondary containment for liquefied natural gas tankers, even larger than a Red Hill tank, and even under harsher conditions. The agreement with GTTNA is not a typical government contract many of us are used to seeing. An other transaction agreement was entered with GTTNA to develop a secondary containment solution at Red Hill using their proprietary technology, which would meet the requirements of the Hawaii Administrative Rules for Secondary Containment. The agreement with GTTNA specifically states their solution must meet the requirements of the HAR. The initial proposal uses the existing tanks only as support and anchoring points. The system would provide a new outer stainless steel membrane, new inner membrane, and a monitored interstice between the two. The next slide breaks down the stages and timelines for GTTNA's secondary containment initiative. Okay, this slide was also briefed at the last FTAC. It shows the staged approach to assess, develop, analyze, and implement the GTTN secondary containment solution. Since the last FTAC, GTTNA completed their initial assessment per plan on schedule. Overall, the solution continues to be promising, and we have moved to stage 2, again, per plan on schedule. Since this is a new technology being studied at a unique facility, testing will be part of stage 2, particularly on the type of materials to be used. This testing will then inform the design development. A successful design will then allow us to move to stage 3. As you can see in the slide, phase 2 is expected to be completed in the fall of 2023. Once stage 2 is completed and this technology continues to prove promising, the pilot tank would be upgraded to the secondary containment system starting in the fall of 2023 for demonstration and validation. This would be an actual full-scale prototype built in a Red Hill tank. We would expect to begin in the fall of 2023 and take approximately 2 years to complete. Following a successful prototype, we can then begin full-scale construction of the remaining tanks at Red Hill. This effort will, of course, need to be approved by the regulatory agencies in accordance with the HAR before the Navy will commit to installing the system across the entire Red Hill facility. The gray box on the bottom highlights our proactive efforts to prepare Tank 1, again, a tank currently non-operational at this time, prepare that tank ahead of stage 2 completion. Our plan is to use this non-operational tank for the prototype. I believe this action shows Navy's commitment to the secondary containment solution, even though the final feasibility has not been determined as part of stage 2. Again, a contract to prepare Tank 1 was awarded in August of this year and will allow us to immediately begin building out the prototype at the completion of stage 2. Okay. Next slide, if you may. In this slide, I want to provide some additional information on the Navy's, we may call, dual path of the AOC to a decision document process and the ongoing research and development with secondary containment. Navy and DLA submitted the TUA decision supplemental in August 2021 to regulators supporting a BAT that is proven and of the day. This supplemental document provided amplifying information to what is required as what we'll call the initial BAP, utilizing what is a proven and available technology. I believe it is critical to continue to have the tanks inspected with current approved standards while several research and development efforts are in progress. Pursuing both paths simultaneously. We do not want to sacrifice current upgrades with the available technology today while we await new technology. We need to do both being continue upgrades and pursue new technologies that we can apply into the future. Navy is actively pursuing secondary containment, which will support our next BAP recommendation within 5 years after this technology provides feasible. The red star you see here is where we are in the process with several of our AOC documents submitted to the regulators, specifically the TUA decision document. AOC recognized that every 5 years there would be continuous improvements, new technology, and new information from several of our programs. And that is why the TUA decision document has to be updated every 5 years, and part of what Gabriella briefed earlier today. Again, all current research efforts, specifically our secondary containment initiative, along with other projects, will be included in the next TUA decision document in 5 years once those technologies become practicable and can be implemented. Again, after all tanks have been upgraded with an approved BAP, the tanks will continue to be upgraded with the latest approved BAP at the time, not an older, previously approved BAP. Even after the AOC is satisfied in 2037, the state will continue to still have oversight of Navy and the Red Hill facility. Navy's commitment goes beyond the AOC and has committed in writing that all tanks will be upgraded by secondary containment by July of 2045. And again, that commitment is uncaveated. By 2037, we will be on our 4th TUA decision document and our 4th BAP with continued enhancements from prior BAPs. To achieve what all parties want long-term, which is protection of the environment, we need to continue with available technology today and incorporate results from current research and development projects in subsequent BAPs. As depicted in the slide, we need an approved BAP today to continue to protect the tanks today, as the Navy is also pursuing secondary containment, which can be part of the BAP in the future. If we move to the next slide, please. I'll now transition to the University of Hawaii initiatives, another item that was a carryover that wanted additional information. Again, we do not have a contract with the University of Hawaii. We have provided grants to the University of Hawaii to help us with our processes and technology. Again, as previously briefed at the last FTAC meeting, in mid-2020, Navy provided its first grant to the University of Hawaii for $1.9 million. 11 research initiatives were part of the grant. The University of Hawaii has made good progress on these initiatives, as you can see here on this slide. The first project that's listed here is nearly complete, and we look forward to receiving the results in the near future. The next 2 initiatives are completing with the funding available and may need further work to fully complete. The remaining ongoing projects you see listed here will be completed as early as the end of this month, and others completing as late as next summer. Next slide, we'll talk about our FY21 initiatives with University of Hawaii. Again, additionally, the University of Hawaii College of Engineering and Applied Research Lab received another grant awarded from the Office of Naval Research for $4 million to conduct research on 5 more initiatives described in this slide here. All of these initiatives are associated with better understanding and mitigating potential corrosion challenges at Red Hill. Again, this is a great example of the partnership, collaboration, and teamwork, the key to our collective success. And finally, the next slide talks about our plans to continue the initiative with the University of Hawaii. As we already have plans for this fiscal year, FY 2022, between the Navy and the University of Hawaii. The Navy has already developed a list of projects and is expecting that University of Hawaii will receive a 3rd grant sometime in late FY 2022. This grant will again fund both the College of Engineering and Applied Research Laboratory. Some of this work could aid in our secondary containment effort and ensure its effectiveness. Again, we are excited to continue to work alongside the best and brightest minds in Hawaii to further improve Red Hill. Okay, in the next slide, I'd just like to remind everyone how Red Hill is a vital strategic asset to the state of Hawaii, not only the Department of Defense, but the state of Hawaii. In an emergency, Red Hill can supply fuel to the international airport, the Honolulu Harbor, Hawaii Electric Company, and first responder ships and aircraft. It was built up on a hill for 2 reasons. First, so that it would be harder to bomb in a war. But the second reason was to ensure that gravity could be used to feed the fuel down to the harbor and airfields, as you see here. So even if the power goes out, the fuel can get to where it's needed, including to HECO, so that power can be restored as quickly as possible, and to the harbor and airport, so that our lifelines to the mainland and elsewhere can be maintained. Again, this slide shows the connection of Red Hill to the commercial fuel pipeline system on Oahu, which is shown in green in this slide. This provides, in an emergency, the ability for Red Hill to provide fuel anywhere the commercial distribution system operates. And finally, on the next slide, the fuel at Red Hill is critical to the national security and can support, as we talked about before, Hawaii in a time of need. Our commitment to safeguarding the water beneath Red Hill is also demonstrated by the continual investment into supporting the programs that I have just briefed. Since the AOC was signed and through the next 5 years, the Department of Defense is anticipated to spend $750 million. We are more than committed to secondary containment. We are continuing to move forward with this efforts that is taking place today. Our continued partnership with the University of Hawaii and the Applied Research Lab leverages the talents of Hawaii's best and brightest to ensure the water remains protected. Because of all these efforts, the water remains safe to drink, again, as reported in annual water quality reports. All tanks continue to pass tank tightness tests since they began in 2009. A Red Hill tank has never failed a tank tightness test. So again, the Navy is serious about moving forward on the improvements, projects, and innovative initiatives I have described, and we remain fully committed to the AOC, the state of Hawaii, to the people of Hawaii, and to the protection of our natural resources. So Peter, that concludes my technical brief.
Very good, thank you. Thanks. First, thanks to all the briefers from EPA, DOH, and Navy for your presentations. I know you put in a lot of preparation. It's a lot of information. Our next section is going to be a discussion opened up for the Fuel Tank Advisory Committee members. And I want to encourage the public, if you have questions or comments, use the chat to send us a signal so that Megan and I can know that you want to get into the line to either ask a question or make a comment later after we've dealt with questions. Let me just do a quick sense from the members. I'm thinking about taking a 5-minute break, really a 5-minute bio break. I know for those who are more technically oriented or scientific, we can call it 4.9, but let's do this. Let's come back at 5 minutes from whatever time your watch or clock is telling you. So take a look, and we will come back and then commence the committee meeting. Thanks.
Hi, Peter. This is Ernie. How's my audio?
It's loud and clear. Thank you, Ernie. Can hear you perfectly fine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to get started. I would like to ask everybody who is not a formal member of the Fuel Tank Advisory Committee to mute themselves, and we will go ahead. And I also want to thank everybody on this call. We have almost 200 people on this call, and I want to thank you for your patience. This is a long march through a lot of details and information. And again, I encourage you, if you have questions for information or clarification, members of the public, put those into the chat. And for members of the committee, I'm just going to call on you as I see your hand or as I see a, one of the raised hand signals. So with that, the floor is open, and let's take information and clarification questions first. I might mention that I also received in advance questions from Ernie Lau, from Ashley Nishihara, and Melanie Lau. And I'm going to just invite you three to start this out. And we need to be brief and brief in responses as well.
Okay, could I could I start off?
Yes, please go ahead, Ashley.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Ashley Nishihara, and I'm part of the group Protect Our Aquifer, or POA for short. As a member of the POA, our position is that the Red Hill Fuel Storage Facility should be shut down, the tanks relocated above ground away from our aquifer and above cap rock, which is, for those who don't know, a dense rock that's hard to penetrate. Our water is an invaluable.
Can I interrupt? I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you have a question? Because I want to hold the comments for just a few minutes later.
Okay, I do have a question. What does the Navy plan to do in the event of a catastrophic spill? Because I noticed that the TUA supplemental layers of protection that Captain Meyer brought up has 3 sections, which is prevention, detection, and mitigation. And under prevention and detection, I noticed that there are 8 bullet points, but under mitigation, which is after something has already happened, a leak, there are only 4 points. So I want to know what is the plan of action? If there is
I'm going to go over to Gordy. If you would respond, if you need to turn it over to somebody else, we'll let you do that.
No, I'll cover that. Thank you very much. And yes, and so we have the 3 layers, prevention, detection, and mitigation. And part of mitigation, is how the Red Hill fuel storage system, bulk fuel storage facility is set up. The way we can collect and capture a spill so they never reach the aquifer in the first place is one measure. And additionally, as we work the groundwater flow model, we look at ways and how we can use that to mitigate items and prevent it from reaching other potential areas that would affect drinking water. And so with that, we have ways to mitigate that as best as possible with the way the facility is constructed to capture that, prevent it from releasing into the groundwater to begin with.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Can you just be a little more specific about what are the ways to do that? What's your strategies on doing that? I think that's very much on the mind of people.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sure. So if you look at how the tanks are constructed and how it is put in place, similar to what happened on the 6th of May event, the concrete encased lower access tunnel is designed to capture much of that fuel and to prevent it from going into the ground. So that is one example of what is being done. Additionally, there are ongoing discussions with regulators about possible ways that the Red Hill water shaft can be used as a capture zone to prevent that from migrating to any other areas once it's impacted into the groundwater, if it ever does happen.
Good, thank you. Other questions from the committee members now? Yes, Francis.
It's Melanie. Can I ask a question?
Melanie, go ahead.
So to follow up on that
Yeah.
question, you said you're investigating ways that the tunnels will capture. So that means you don't know already how much it will capture. And you're relying on the concrete to soak up whatever leaks. Captain Meyer?
Sure, I'll cover that. And so we're not relying on the concrete to absorb the fuel. Again, we have ability to capture it in that lower access tunnel. And again, if you look at slide 13, we can list of those 4 areas, the use of the Red Hill Shaft as a capture zone, again, prevent that from happening. Look at the use of natural attenuation in the environment, as that provides a protection as well. Improving our release response procedures continually. Again, from the May 6th event, our response procedures worked very well and as intended to prevent that fuel from going into the environment and was actually captured and recovered. And then we're looking at, developing more reserve capacity storage prior to filling any prior tanks, so that if a leak was to occur, in the random case or unlikely case that a leak was to be able to occur, we could move fuel to prevent any significant type of release.
I'd like to just ask a reminder to people who are not members of the Fuel Tank Advisory Committee. Francis, I don't think you're a member, so I'm going to hold this. Please hold on to your question until later. And that's true with any others who are trying to jump on. This is really for the committee. So let's go ahead. Who else from the committee had their hand up or wants to ask a question?
I have another question. Can we go to his slide? Sorry, this is Melanie. Can we go to his slide 3? Megan, are we able to pull it up? It was a picture of the water table and the facility where the tanks were.
Just a moment. I closed the slide presentation.
Oh, I'm
It'll
sorry.
take me just a moment. Oh, no problem. Yeah, just give me 1 minute.
Okay, thanks. Well, I'll ask the question while we're at it. In previous meetings, and actually this one again, I'm not really sure where we are at looking for alternative sites. I remember one of the Navy people saying in the past that, oh, thank you, that we were looking and then just nothing that is going to meet our requirements. However, if you set up the requirements so that only one site will meet that, it's sort of stacking the deck and it's not really quite fair. I do recall that alternative site that was brought up was further up the Wanalua Valley, which is again still over the aquifer if you look at this picture, because the aquifer is the green as far as I remember. The yellow, I'm sorry, the pink is where there's not potable water drinkable water for us. So there's always that argument. You don't want to put it further up the valley and you don't want to have it over the drinking water still. Then the argument comes back that, oh, well, we want it gravity fed. Okay, well, make the tanks high enough. And if you really want it gravity fed, you can use Mokapu Point. This also has a height there. But my other point is that you're tied under the AOC for BAPT, best available practicable technology. We do have practicable technology already, since we've already been able to move the tanks, well, not move the tanks, empty the tanks and redesign double walled at Manchester and Point Loma. And I know you're going to tell me that it's because the volume here is much higher, great, but we can also work with that. I don't think you really agree, well, are meeting the every 5-year BAPT cycle, because there is practicable technology available. It's not just proposing that we're going to do some more studies and we're going to hope that the best and brightest come up with something for us, or GTTNA.
Melanie, let's let Gordy respond on the alternative site planning.
Thank you.
So
yes, you're right. I always run things together. Yes.
Thank you so much for being patient. Go ahead, Gordon.
Yes, and so regarding relocation, it's not just the tanks that need to be relocated, it's the entire fuel distribution system that also is a consideration in that. And so that is obviously a portion of what is in play when we look at relocation. Additionally, we look at relocation from where they are located today to above ground. There is a level of security in where they are located today under the Red Hill facility, covered by a significant amount of bedrock that prevents any type of tampering or any type of kinetic attack that would cause issues or concerns. And again, these are strategic reserves. Moving them above ground causes that issue and concern. And so there's a multiple number of aspects, and it's not just the elevation, which obviously elevation is important, but it's the fuel distribution as well as many other things. Now, going back to your point about the other areas, I think Manchester and Point Loma, again, yeah, yes, those tanks are smaller, but that's not the main reason why that's not necessarily a practical item to do. You know, the tanks at Point Loma and Manchester are very different than what we have here at Red Hill. Again, actually, you know, those tanks were built very differently, just below the ground and covered with earth, constructed differently, that weren't protective of the environment, and hence that's why they were removed and put above ground. Whereas our tanks have a different construction system that is protective. And so that's another reason why it's not, I can't do an apples to apples comparison between those two sites.
I disagree with you in terms of it being in a site that is protected. And also, I mean, the whole reason to have it undercut and cover in the beginning was to protect it from being bombed. Well, I'm sorry, warfare has improved since then, and everybody knows where the tanks are now. So there is not a strategic advantage to that either. However, there is best available practical technology now that you're not implementing. And that's my one point that I have besides all the others on your list, but I'm only hitting one at a time, like Peter said I should do.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. We can come back to other questions or certainly comments at the end. How about other questions for information or clarification from the members of the committee? Ryan Imata.
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to circle back on Ashley's question and Captain Meyer's response, specifically to remediation with respect to the Red Hill shaft. So, you know, is it possible to share my screen?
Are you going to be brief? I want to make sure.
Yeah, I'll try to be as quick as possible. And I don't know if these are questions that can be answered, but let me, yeah, I get post disabled.
Megan, can you allow for that?
Okay, while that happens, my questions are specific to the remediation plans from Red Hill Shaft. Commission wants to know what are the magnitude and duration of pumpage to ensure that contaminated water will be captured using whatever particle tracking efforts have been made to date. How does the Navy plan to remain within the current pumping allocation? That's why I wanted to share my screen. And what's the plan if the required flow that they pull out exceeds what the commission has allocated as an allocation for Red Hill Shaft? If the remediation pumpage renders a source unable to deliver potable water to the systems, are there alternative sources of water to supply those needs? And then once the water is pumped out, how is that water going to be treated? How will the treated water be disposed of? If it's re-injected, will that cycle of pumpage and re-injection prevent contamination from being transported to Red Hill? So in other words, if you re-inject it at the shaft or near the shaft, is that somehow going to prevent further migration of contaminant to the shaft? And if it will the groundwater model estimate an appropriate disposal site? That's kind of all the questions I had. To share my screen, I still can't do it, but I just wanted to show where the Navy is in terms of pumping Red Hill Shaft with respect to the allocation, because they have an allocation from us of 4.56 or 4.659. And if they exceed their allocation, then by pumping and remediating, then what's the plan? So those are some of the questions that the commission has. Thank you.
It's a lot of questions packed in there, but maybe Captain Meyer, you want to respond?
Sure. Yes. And again, lots of great technical.
You need to get closer to your microphone. I think you're breaking up a little bit.
Items that are being discussed as part of the groundwater flow model technical working group. Okay, I apologize for that. Peter?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit.
Can you hear me okay, Peter?
I can right now, but I think you got to get real close.
Okay, well, okay, I'll try to speak slow so everyone can hear. Again, those are all great questions that are part of the groundwater flow model technical working group, and a lot of technical questions and a lot of different perspectives from everyone that is involved with that. again, a Navy's perspective is that we can use the Red Hill shaft to provide a capture zone with the flows that are allocated. And again, Navy has other means to provide water for the Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam and surrounding areas from surrounding wells. And so we believe that Red Hill shaft, our models indicate that. But again, there's a lot of ongoing questions and discussions that we're working at a very technical level that are being discussed at the working group.
And is that posted, is your status of that posted someplace, Captain Meyer? Is there a place you can point us to where that groundwater work is, I know it's in progress. I understand there's been a lot of discussion, but is there a place that people can go to for a summary of what the status is?
So we've got many documents, and so as part of our administrative order and consent, those documents would be included. As far as the specific notes, I'd have to look to see if we have those, or if those are publicly posted anywhere. But again, we work with all stakeholders in helping to answer those.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Ashley, I'm gonna hold you. I want to go to committee members who haven't spoken yet. I promise you I will come back, unless I get stupid, some case of the stupids. So Ernie, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And Ryan, great questions. Maybe Captain Myers, in simple terms, is a question that we've had from day one. We've been at this Red Hill situation for almost 8 years now. Has been, does water from near the Red Hill tanks flow across the valley toward Halava Shaft? And can the fuel leaks at Red Hill eventually make its way to Halava Shaft, one of our biggest drinking water sources for the Honolulu all the way out to Hawaii Kai? So with the latest groundwater working group, which included the EPA, the USGS, the Water Commission, and ourselves, and the Navy, in layperson's terms, is your latest modeling efforts indicating that water can flow across Halava Valley from the direction from starting at the tanks at Red Hill toward our Halava Shaft?
Yes, and so in general, our models indicate that groundwater generally flows down towards the coastline. And our models indicate that as long as we keep the capture zone at Red Hill, there will not be transfer or lateral movement of that groundwater that would affect the Halava Shaft.
Captain, I give you the opportunity to be very transparent and forthcoming in just simple terms from what we've seen at the working group meeting. Sorry, I wasn't able to make it. It's really busy, but my staff did. Again, the question, your latest modeling efforts, and I guess there is something called I think Ryan referenced a particle tracking modeling or particle track. Is there a flow gradient or ability for water from near the Red Hill fuel tanks, the ability to flow across Halava Valley to our Halava Shaft, going in the northwesterly direction, in addition to the flow that you referred to going from Mauka to Makai toward the ocean? Yes or no, sir?
So no, our models do not indicate that lateral transfer as long as we keep the Red Hill Shaft operating as a capture zone. We do not see that occurring. And again, if there's disagreements or other thoughts on the model, or we continue to discuss those, but no, we do not see that lateral.
Peter, if you could indulge me in just a follow-up question, maybe.
Go ahead. I want to make sure we get information and clarification from the Navy and from EPA and DOH.
Yeah, may I ask also the opinions of the other people that were part of that working group meeting, the Water Commission, the Department of Health, and the EPA? I believe Gabriella, you were there. Maybe Joanna was there. I think Ryan, you were there with some of your team. What are your opinions on the ability for water to flow from the location of the Red Hill shaft, Red Hill fuel tanks toward our Halava shaft going in a northwesterly flow, basically across Halava Valley.
Laterally.
Laterally, yes.
This is Gabriella. I can kick it off. We're still evaluating it. I think that the information that was shared at the groundwater flow modeling working group meeting was that at this time, the models that the Navy has presented in their report don't provide a reliable basis to evaluate potential aquifer impacts. And we're still looking at this flow information. There was a significant technical discussion specifically on flow at that meeting. And I think the results are inconclusive at this point. And so we're still evaluating.
Gabriella, thank you.
Gabriella.
DOH, do you want to comment on this? Is anybody from DOH, Joanna, or anybody else?
The department is in agreement with the EPA statement. Thank you.
My understanding crudely is that the groundwater modeling is tremendously challenging. It's a complex hydrogeology. So it's not surprising that these are still questions that are in the air. Other members of the committee, do you have questions that you'd like to make? Because I know Melanie and Ashley have already spoken. I'm going to come back to them. But unless anybody else has a question. All right, I'm going to go back to Ashley. What's your question, Ashley?
All right, I wanted to actually follow up on the point that Melanie was just making about alternate locations for the tanks. I actually heard of a potential location that the tanks could be relocated to, but the Navy is planning to build a, quote, transit-oriented mixed-use development project called Little Macalapa instead on it. And I don't know very much about this. It was just brought to my attention. So I was wondering if I could have more information on that. Like why is it being developed there instead of being used as a potential site to relocate the tanks?
Sure, this is Captain Meyer. And so I think the Little Macalapa area you're talking about, or a transit-oriented development, is right next to the area I think we're referring to is right next to the new rail station that is being built right at the entrance to Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam. Again, it's a very limited site, very small, it cannot support the entire area. And again, it would be an above ground area. We would need the fuel distribution system as well constructed. And again, provides that above ground vulnerability that we currently don't have today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Melanie, question?
Yes. The above ground seems to be something that the Navy really doesn't want to do. I'm not sure if it's an excuse to not relocate the tanks, but I work in Kapolei, very near the FBI building, which is above ground. And you would think that the FBI has enough technology to jam everything that you're talking about. So I don't understand why we can't use their technology to also jam whatever may affect above ground tanks. And why are other above ground tanks in America not a problem?
When you say, sorry, just to clarify, when you say jam, you mean electronic jamming?
Like, yeah, sorry, because he's worried about sabotage, which I get, you know, and it's, you know, I get that. I'm just trying to figure out why the FBI can do it, who is just another federal agency, and the Navy cannot share technology.
Captain Meyer, comment?
Sure, there are a variety of threats that could threaten a fuel tank, and sabotage is one of them. Again, the geology of Red Hill provides that protection that would not be afforded at other above ground locations.
Okay, thank you.
So what, I'm sorry, the follow-up is then why are other tanks not also vulnerable? So why is that not also a question for the other fuel tanks in America?
Yes, there are vulnerable fuel tanks across America, and I think it's very important to have a protected system. So as part of strategic reserve, if we were to have contingency, we would have that fuel available that is not subject to those type of concerns. Again, look at there's some vulnerabilities that the wet East Coast experience on fuel distribution through some cyber attacks. And so the resiliency of Red Hill protects against that. And
Okay, I want to continue on unless there are other specific questions for information and clarification. I want to go back to Ashley with comments. This is your moment to make the comment about your position or your view. Again, the primary goal is to make sure everybody learns. That's what we want to have happen here. Everybody gets informed. So Ashley, back to you. You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. All right. Thank you, Peter. I did have actually like one more question. How does the DOH and EPA plan to hold the Navy accountable, besides issuing fees? Because I can't understand how a permit can even be considered to be issued in light of all that's been revealed recently, and the lack of transparency regarding the Red Hill pipeline leaking to Pearl Harbor, and the various environmental violations and fines incurred from these. I want to be able to trust the Navy with the massive responsibility of properly maintaining these tanks, but I just can't, and that makes me really upset and sad.
So you're asking, you'd like a little more on what the regulators are doing. Is that correct?
Yes. What do they do to, make sure that the Navy follows through?
Okay, I'm going to turn over back to Gabriella and Roxanne or Joanna, if they can speak to that very briefly.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So under the AOC, I hope the presentation covered those areas in which the Navy is required to produce a series of deliverables, and the regulatory agencies review them for adequacy and make sure that they stay on a schedule. And I know that's not a very satisfying and kind of bureaucratic answer. The AOC is only one part of kind of this regulatory umbrella over the Red Hill facility. The state of Hawaii also has their regulatory program. So I would let the Department of Health speak to that program.
Yeah, in addition to what Gabriella said about the enforcement or keeping the Navy on task with the AOC, we also have in our toolbox the ability to do inspections and regulatory enforcement. And that's how we intend to keep the Navy on task.
Okay, the floor stays open for comments and questions from the Fuel Tank Advisory Committee. When we've finished with that, we're going to move to the public. Melanie, your hand is still up. Ernie, your hand is still up. I don't know whether you forgot to take it down or you have something further.
No, are we in the comment section where I can just sort of rattle on?
Yeah, please do. And again, brevity is valuable here because there's a lot of people who want to speak.
Right. So
I'm sorry, go ahead, Melanie. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll be real quick. So the Navy had that one slide that had like 7 different points. And so I had questions as it was coming up. One is that if you're going to release those reports on what we were just talking about. Anyway, they're redacted. They're pretty much redacted. I've tried to look at them, but it's useless. And so I'm wondering who actually gets to see the redacted reports. And people were asking about, I just lost the point. The point we were just talking about. Anyway, Kyle, you asked about it. Anyway, let me go on. You also recommend that the public feedback is valued. However, we do not have any public meetings anymore. You just put out the audio cast, which pretty much are just informational because I've listened to them. The public meeting we had at the Honolulu Middle School was actually useful. And I understand we're in a pandemic, but we are actually having a Zoom meeting right now. So, it is a possible thing to do. Your UH projects are very nice. I think it's good to use the best and the brightest. However, most of those projects are for remediation and detection. How about prevention? How about also giving the UH money to look for alternative sites. We're not saying that we want to have all the fuel be gone. We understand fuel forward. We understand safety of the nation. However, we also have only one aquifer. So work with us and put it over the pink areas instead of the blue areas. And yeah, and GTTNA just has a private contract. Then again, that one also is redacted. So we have no idea what the final goal was or what you actually paid them for it. So, and then still just an idea in progress. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Melanie, part of that was a comment, but it started with a question about what are the redactions? What's that all about? And Captain Meyer, can you speak to what happens in redactions? What gets redacted? What doesn't?
Sure. On the redactions, any personal information is redacted to remove any personal information, as well as any national defense critical infrastructure that can be obtained from those. And so I hear your comment about it's significantly redacted. I guess I would argue that it is relatively not redacted. There are some pictures that are redacted, obviously, but again, that is the redacted report really tells the story of what occurred. And again, we will be working with the regulators to share the unredacted information, so they have that for their information. But again, unredacted to a degree, again, personal information will not be shared.
So just to clarify, sorry, that groundwater modeling report is going to be redacted or not? And if it is redacted, who gets to see the unredacted report?
So again, you're talking about the groundwater flow model, the unredacted reports will be available and have been seen by the regulators.
Okay, thank you for everybody. I want to see if there's any last questions or comments from the Fuel Tank Advisory Committee. Ernie, please go ahead. And the floor is open for your comments here as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Peter. I'd like to make a request. Just, the Board of Water Supply remains extremely concerned about this situation. Protection of our drinking water resources, I know, is important to both the Navy and to the BWS. Our Halawa shaft is one of our largest sources. So if we had to shut that off, the consequences to the people of Honolulu all the way out to Hawaii Kai will be very dire. So I would encourage all the regulators and the Navy and DLA to take expeditious action. What's also important here is transparency. We find great difficulty getting copies or information on the test data from the monitor wells. The groundwater test data, water quality test data, usually it takes 6-7 months to get posted on the EPA's website. We'd like that to happen a lot sooner. I guess it's taken quarterly, so I would hope that by the following month, that information would be publicly available and available to the Board of Water Supply, because that is like the canary in the coal mine. That is the warning that if there is a fuel contaminant plume moving on the groundwater, moving across Halawa Valley to our Halawa shaft, that is the information that we need to prepare. If the information comes 6 or 7 months later, by the time it gets posted, given to the Department of Health and posted, we've lost 6 or 7 months of valuable time to try to prepare and respond to contamination of fuel that is moving on the groundwater. So my request formally is make that information available to the public and to the BWS on a very timely way, at least within a month of actually submission of the information to the Department of Health. And Navy, please submit it on time to the Department of Health. Keep on schedule. And I would encourage also that maybe the frequency of testing, instead of being quarterly, be monthly for these test wells, because data is information that we need to be able to respond to a situation that's brewing. If not, it's going to be like a train's going to hit us and we would have wondered why are we suddenly detecting fuel at Halawa shaft. We need this warning. We need this data. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. Any last questions or comments from the Fuel Tank Advisory Committee? Because I'm going to open up, and Megan, I'm going to enlist your help because I've not been monitoring the chat very closely on ordering some of these people. So I'm going to invite you to help me with that one, if you will. So Ashley, your hand back up.
Yeah, I gotta get used to unmuting that button on time. Okay, so yeah, one last thing, and it popped up as Ernie was speaking. Yeah, I 100% fully agree that timeliness is essential. You gotta the Navy not only has to submit it on time, but the DOH has to make it so that there's no room for just doing whatever you want, because I read that in the HAR it can take up to 90 days to report a spill, a leak to the public, the affected public. And I thought 90 days, what? Why is 90 days allowed to elapse before? And this is not the whole public of Oahu. This is just the people who it directly affects, like right there and then, like it's in your backyard. And so there need to be more stringent time spans. It needs to be enforced. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Thank you, members of the FTAC committee. This is really valuable to have. We're grappling with all the complexities. Everybody understands that this is not a simple situation, but it's really important that the public as well as the committee understands and is able to ask questions. Megan, are you able to help line up a few of our people who might, and again, the same principle, information and clarification questions first. I may ask you to defer longer commentaries till a little later. The goal here is learning. Megan?
Yes, so we've been having a discussion about reading the chats so that those who want to be heard maybe by their chats being read, and then we'll get to the commenters as they come up. So we do have two is keeping a list of those who've requested to comment verbally. So
again, I want to enlist two
and
Megan to help with this. In case it's not clear, it's very hard to monitor 187 people all at once.
Okay, and would you like me to say who submitted the chat or just read the chat? What is preferable?
Why don't you read the chat for us, and then we can go to the people who have questions that they want to ask.
Okay, so Ann Wright said that she had to leave, but she wanted to submit a statement. 2 other military-based underground fuel tanks have been closed down and above ground fuel tanks installed at the Point Loma facility in San Diego, California, and the Manchester facility in the state of Washington. Funds were allocated for the construction of new above ground fuel tanks. In the 2022 Department of Defense budget of $778 billion, to which Congress added an extra $20 billion over what the military and administration had requested, surely our water supply for 400,000 residents of Oahu, including the military personnel who live in the aquifer area and staff the military commands located on Oahu, is more important than the fuel for the aircraft, ships, and other vehicles that are operated under these commands. If the military personnel are sick from the contaminated water supply, then the national security of our country is jeopardized by one of the military commands that has not made the safe storage of jet fuel a priority. The Pentagon spent $8 trillion of US tax dollars over the past 10 years, which is the equivalent of over 1.5 million per minute. Within the 2022 $778 billion budget, surely $5 billion can be funded to close down the Red Hill jet fuel tanks and construct above ground tanks. Above ground tanks are not difficult to construct. We already have many above ground tanks on Sand Island and other locations on Oahu. Ironically, what seems to be the most difficult is the will to finally admit that 80-year-old leaking fuel tanks must be closed down for the human security of 400,000 residents of our community. The time has come for the Red Hill fuel tanks to be closed before catastrophe strikes and the water supply is polluted forever. And this is Colonel retired Ann Wright.
Okay. I just want to, we're going to try to use, if there's lots and lots of comments, we're going to use a 2-minute ground rule. And if you don't finish in 2 minutes, you can always come back in line. And again, so it's not an attempt to silence you, it's an attempt to be brief in these conversations. Megan, was there another comment? And again, I'm going to hold you to 2 minutes here.
Yes, and I'll start the timer for me because that one was lengthy. I didn't realize the length of it.
Thank you.
And I will time myself. There is a request. Please provide the contract for public review. I have submitted a FOIA request, but have not received requested records. And this is from Kyle Kajihiro.
And this is regarding the GTTNA contract, I think.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, David Kimo Frankel said, since when does Hawaii Electric Company burn jet fuel? Let's see. Again, he said, immediately after the May 6th leak, you claimed that release was properly collected. The system worked as designed and that the fuel was contained within our facility. None of this was true. Soil vapor monitors have revealed dramatic spikes in volatile organic compounds from the fuel. Why did you lie about how well the facility contained the spill?
Okay, we'll take that as a comment.
Yes, that's a comment. This is Francis. The Navy has been proactive and supportive of replacement of the fuel tanks in Manchester, Washington, and Port Loma, California, and pursued replacement with above ground tanks without needing much community pressure. Why hasn't the Navy taken similar proactive action to replace or fortify the tanks, which were admittedly leaking and likely to leak 30,000 gallons in the next 5 years and threaten the water supply of 400,000 people? Has the Navy weighed the cost to the city and state resulting from a catastrophic contamination of the wells versus the cost to the Navy to replace the tanks, both costs of which are likely to be paid by federal taxpayers? I would also like to speak to follow up on the Navy's answers. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. I would like to see if there are questions again that we need to address for clarification and information that may have shown up in the chat. And let's tee those up and send those over to Captain Meyer, who may bring in others from his crew on those. Two, or is there, do you see one? Do you see, again, I haven't been able to monitor the chat and the conversation same
There
time.
is a chat. The next chat does include questions. This is from John Brodziak. Given the inadequacy of the current groundwater modeling for predicting spill impacts, what is the basis for estimating the risk of a catastrophic event? And what is the EPA DOH standard for the acceptable probability of a catastrophic event?
Good question. Let's go.
Megan?
Yes.
You know, we were going to try to read all the chatted comments. I'm thinking at this point, we may just leave the chatted comments as it is right now, because we have 11 people so far in the queue for oral comments. We might just start with those.
Thank you. That would be a good idea.
Yeah, sorry. Also, the chatted comments will be included along with the written comments in the report to the ledge.
As part of the record. They'll be part of the record.
So the first person would be David Ford, sorry, excuse me. David Ford. You're on mute, David. You're on mute.
You're muted, David.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, I wrote some documents and I sent them in. And what we're not talking about here, and maybe I should say it, the first priority is sealing off the bottom of the tank farm. There's a number of geological ways to do so, chemically, mechanically, and otherwise. I'm with operating engineers since 1969 to 2008, retired master mechanic. I've been around the world fixing things that can't be fixed. So what I want to tell you is that this is a mistake, that the Navy's taking too long to do something. And the problem is they need a blank check from Congress with no excuses to take that tank farm and turn it into a AA class winning ticket dragster race that under fire, under attack, and whatever happens, that even we have another Pearl Harbor, that that tank farm operates. And if it cannot do it, then turn it into a museum. That is my thing, because my boss would not take this 5 minutes in 50 years of my work as a welder, as a mechanic, as a heavy duty crane operator, and everything else that you can imagine. It's a beating that nobody would take, but I've taken it. And I'm telling you, that tank farm is not going to take it unless we Americans go to work. And I stand for operating engineers, saluting the flag since the day I was born. In 1967, during the Vietnam War, I was in the sub base working as a dishwasher and wound up on a deck of an aircraft carrier welding a big hole in it for 158 hours with no sleep. I just fell down. They dragged me under an F4 or whatever that was. Aircraft covered me up. When I waked with coffee, the welding equipment was back in my hand. That's the kind of dedication I have towards the Navy. That's the kind of dedication I have towards my country. And I don't see that dedication here unless we go. And also, instead of just
Thank you, David. You're at 2 minutes.
I think that all
Can you summarize and bring it to a close, David?
Yes, bringing to the close. If our country is to become the country, as we always part ourselves, then we need to make this a model of expertise excellence, or we need to put it into a museum and do something else.
Thank you.
That's what I think.
Thank you.
And I will continue to support Ed Lau, Melia Juna, and the rest of these committees with whatever technology that I have at my hands and my expertise knowledge, including the U.S. Navy.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Next up is Matt Geyer.
Aloha, I'm Matt Geyer. I'm the Director of Public Outreach for the Environmental Justice Task Force of Faith Action for Community Equity, but I'm testifying today as an individual. So imagine you go to your uncle's house in the country, and at his house, he gets all his water from a catchment tank for drinking, cooking, watering his garden. And by chance, your uncle's name is Sam. So while digging around his yard, he found this teapot that's been buried in the ground for 75 years. And for some reason, this teapot is full of toxic cancer-causing chemicals. And of course, it's rusted through and leaking. And what do you know? He accidentally drops the teapot full of toxic chemicals into his catchment tank. But he reassures you, don't worry, it fell in a place where it probably won't leak into the water. And rather than remove the teapot, Uncle Sam puts leak detection sensors around the teapot. Would you feel comfortable drinking Uncle Sam's water? What if you found out your uncle had covered up and hidden problems related to his water in the past and doesn't release the leak detection results for months? Would you still feel okay drinking that water? Raise your hand if you are willing to drink that water. What if he tells you he'll repaint the teapot? I don't see any hands raised. That's funny because keeping the Red Hill tanks in use, you're asking us to drink that water and be okay with that. Yeah, and it doesn't leak too much on a normal basis, but we are one medium-sized earthquake away from an epic disaster. Now I have a little joke here to lighten the mood if I still have time.
You have 4 seconds, so I think it needs to be saved. Thank you.
Dang
it. Thank you for that.
The Red Hill tanks are so old.
Thanks for being respectful of the time limit. 2, is there anybody else?
Oh yeah. Well, number 3 is Kyle. This is of 12 folks that are in line right now. Kyle. Kitchen Hero. Are you still there?
Well, we'll take his written comment in the chat as part of the record.
So number 4 is John Brodziak.
Hey, Peter, this is Captain Horniak. We're having some technical difficulty right now, and we're not able to receive audio. Over.
Please do whatever you can, because these are important testimonies. People want you to hear them. So do whatever you can. Thanks, Captain. And let's continue. It will be part of the record, so you'll have that. But we hope you'll get tuned in on audio.
Is John Brodziak still there or?
Yes, he's there. I see him.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you very much. I really appreciate all the excellent presentations on the information provided. This is really good, but I think one of the key to making good decisions on the tank alternatives is characterizing the spill probability of a catastrophic event and its expected cost. And in this context, I really think we need to have good documentation and reproducibility from all the steps that we go through in this process. So I would really like to see the unredacted groundwater modeling reports, frankly. As a scientist, I think they're evaluatable, and I think we need to see them. In the case of an unfortunate and hopefully improbable event, we also need to have the idea of how are we going to mitigate that event? And I don't necessarily see a clear plan to deal with the catastrophic situation. So I think we need those things outlined. And apart from that, I think it's a positive process so far. So I congratulate all of you for your participation. Thank you.
And John, if I may, I believe you started out asking a specific question about risk and risk analysis, or is this part of that same question?
Yes, sir. The idea of risk analysis is what is the acceptable public risk percentage of events out of a realization. Is it a 1% risk of catastrophic failure? And we have to define catastrophic failure. Maybe that's 50,000 gallons, leaked. But that's the kind of thing we really need. And if we don't have a good groundwater modeling capacity, then we're really limited, and we should be a little bit more precautionary in terms of dealing with the overall situation. Again, it's critical for the U.S. as a national perspective to have this tank capacity here in Hawaii, but it's also critical for the tank capacity to be work with the current aquifer system here in Hawaii. So those are the decisions that are going to be made, and it's important. Thank you.
Thanks, Captain Gordy. Are you back online? Are you able to respond? Can you hear us?
Yes, this is Captain Meyer. How can you hear me? Over.
Yeah, we can hear you. There's a little reverberation. Can you respond very briefly to what John just raised regarding, I know there's if you can't respond, I understand you're having a technical problem. Can we hear anything from EPA or DOH on the risk work that seems to be going on? So it's partly responsive to John's question and comment. Excuse me. Navy, it looks like they're not getting the audio working right. DOH, any comments on risk work that's going on? EPA, Gabriella, comments? It's really on the Navy to do this, I know.
Yes, I apologize. I don't have all the numbers in front of me. I understand that the groundwater flow model report does look at a series of scenarios and kind of bounds release volumes in looking at what the results may be through their modeling work. I don't have those exact thresholds in front of me at the moment, though.
Okay.
This is Captain Meyer. So I'm back online in a different device, so hopefully you can hear me okay.
Good, thank you. You want to comment on the issues that John Brodziak raised regarding risk and probabilities of catastrophic events, probable costs? He raised some important questions. I think others will be interested in any comments you can offer on that.
Sure, I didn't hear every single question and comment, but I will say, that obviously Navy strives to reduce any and all risk as we operate the Red Hill fuel system. And that's part of our risk and vulnerability assessment, is looking at what those risks are and try to minimize those. And that's, again, part of our ongoing AOC process as we move forward.
And that's, I assume that's from this, it's not completed yet. It's a work in progress. Am I correct on that? Or is it partially completed? Where are you at on that?
Yeah, so it's again a work in progress. We've submitted our risk vulnerability assessment statement of work, received regulator feedback. We're in the process of resubmitting, and again, there's a system of efforts that need to occur. Again, the risk vulnerability assessment also feeds into the ground, is part of the groundwater flow model, which then feeds into the contaminant fate and transport, which then can be put into total risk to public health. And so there's a series of items in the AOC that result in that full end state of what the true impact is. And so those three areas, the risk vulnerability assessment, the groundwater flow model, and contaminant fate and transport model, that are all being worked, put together that full picture of the risk to environment. And again, most of that is ongoing work.
Thank you. Tu, I want to go back to you if there are other comments or questions.
We have Melody. You're up, please.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, the Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii supports the decommissioning of the Red Hill tanks and relocation of the tanks to an area where a sole source aquifer will not be placed at risk of petroleum contamination, or in the alternative, to mandate that the Red Hill tanks be double walled or double lined. The Red Hill steel tanks are encased in porous cement and have been exposed to 80 years of deterioration. Thus, 80 years of leaks have entered our environment, and the Navy has confirmed a 34% chance of a major leak at the facility in the next 100 years. We also require under HAR public notification immediately in the event of a release from the Red Hill fuel tanks, so that public can properly prepare. Further, a desalinization facility should be constructed, given the Navy's own prediction of a 27.6% chance of an annual release of 30,000 gallons of fuel per year. Given that, 1, Oahu's sole source groundwater aquifer provides critical drinking water supplies that simply cannot be replaced. 2, 187 million gallons of fuel is stored there. 3, petroleum chemicals have been repeatedly detected in groundwater and rock underneath the tanks. And 4, the Navy's report lulls the public into the mistaken belief that up to 700,000 gallon release would not cause any impacts to the Navy's Red Hill shaft. We believe it is far better to drain the 187 million gallons of petroleum and to relocate the fuel into state-of-the-art above-ground tanks in an area where such fuel storage will not pose a clear and present danger or cause an imminent and substantial endangerment to human life, health, and the environment, or the alternative, require the reinforcement of the Red Hill fuel tanks with a secondary containment with interstitial monitoring as soon as possible.
You're at 2 minutes. You can continue with another comment
later.
Thank you.
One more time. Do not wait until 2045. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, Tu, back to you. Who else is teed up?
Okay, number 6 is Lionel Damonte, and then this is 13, just FYI. Lionel?
Yes, and it's Linnell. I'm just an ordinary concerned citizen from the North Shore. And one of my points is that with what the Board of Water Supply, Ernie Lau, had said from Halawa to Hawaii Kai, this problem affects the entire island. Even with the 400,000 residents, each and every one of us from all points of Oahu knows someone in that area. So if your auntie, uncle, your grandma, your grandpa lives in that area, and if they have to go without water, or if they become poisoned or contaminated in any way, we feel it because they are our ohana, right? So it's not restricted just to from Halawa to Hawaii Kai. Another thing, again, like Melody was saying, 2045, that is a long time away. We've spent the past several years with investigations, reports. We need to have lots more action, whether it's to relocate or to shut down. But, this ripple effect, if there is a disaster, and when this disaster happens, our entire state will be affected by it. That's, and also too, I do have a message to our congressional delegates. We need to do what is pono. At this time, we cannot just waffle and cater to the lobbyists, military contractors, and military entities, but listen to the people. That is why you are there in Washington. And secondly, to this committee, Mr. Adler, you keep referring to how everyone needs to learn, everyone is to be informed. Your committee needs to look to how we can help all those Filipinos in Cali, how they can get this information. How do we get this information?
Now you're at 2 minutes.
All right, I'm sorry, but you understand what I'm saying. You want people to know, figure out a way.
Thank you, Linnell.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry about your pronunciation. Gina Hara? Gina, are you there?
Hi. So in 2 minutes, I've been to almost every single meeting from 2014 until this year. So as a public, as a person raised in Halava this whole time, I just want to explain to you very quickly. Everybody knows that there's a water lens underneath. That's the, the pink and the green idea. And so from the Halava point of view, having the tanks above the aquifer, we can't accept that. But today's meeting, it was very clear from the captain that because of the bedrock, you did not do any research on any alternative site, even though there were 13 sites like CNL. So for the past 8 years, I've been testifying about site CNL. What about CNL? And the guy named DeLeo, who was your predecessor, was lying to me because every time I asked that, he didn't say anything. I'm trying to be civil, but I feel very like you guys don't respect my time, that we have to take off work to come to these meetings, and you're not taking it seriously. Even though I have to say the double lining, at least you made some progress on that. But I want to say to you, just like your bedrock is like an issue you're not going to handle, we don't going to handle a double lining just above the aquifer. I mean, basically that's it. Then when we look at the big picture of this, the AOC in the past 8 years is only legitimizing doing nothing about getting it off the aquifer, because I don't see any study about do you need all those tanks on CNL? Can't you find different areas in your military sites that you can put better, newer technology? We're in property management, and we don't just make, we don't line the tank, we make a new one. Because it's not if it's going to leak, it's when it's going to leak. There's no 100-year planning with a budget. What are you going to do about 100 years from now?
You're at 2 minutes.
Okay, sorry. That's basically it.
Thank you, Gina. Thanks so much.
Wayne Tanaka, please. Wayne Tanaka.
Oh, okay, I'm here. All right. Good morning, task force members. Wayne Tanaka. I'm the executive director of the Sierra Club of Hawaii. As you know, Sierra Club's position is that the Red Hill fuel storage facility needs to be moved off of our aquifer. We do want to emphasize the following points. So first, regarding the May 2021 spill report and the Department of Health's notice of violation, the reports and the NOV, they really emphasize what we already know, which is that human error can never be eliminated. And it's worth keeping in mind that both the spill incident and then the earlier 2020 routine inspection that led to the notice of violation occurred when the Navy knew it was under intense scrutiny, and yet despite all of their plans and procedures, they still could not prevent these incidents and these violations from happening. And speaking from my own experience and training, as an engineer and as an attorney, that's a given. I mean, nobody, not the Navy, not the best and brightest, can think of everything that can go wrong, including and especially with regards to human error. That's why we have lawsuits. That's why condominiums collapse. That's why deep water oil rigs explode. And in this case, it wasn't just human error. It was human error, just one person screw up on top of equipment shortcomings, including alarm failures, wrong valves, wrong supports, all resulting in explosive changes in pressure, such that pipes are getting blown off their couplings, pipes literally smashing into things so hard that they deformed surrounding metal fixtures. And maybe what happened in May was a small spill, but this could have been so much worse. Like, what if a pipe hit concrete and caused a spark, just as the fuel is leaking out? Heating concrete with metal is a great way to make sparks fly. What would be the potential consequences if something like that happened? And again, there's no way the Navy, not the best and brightest, can think of everything or even control everything. And there's things in addition to human error well beyond the Navy's control. What about an earthquake? What happens if there's an earthquake during a field movement? What happens if there's a bad actor, like a civilian contractor, military service member with malicious intent?
Thank you, Wayne. You're at 2 minutes.
The Navy does not do a good job of monitoring the mental state of its own sailors, which is terrible. But we've had active shooters, we've had police standoffs just in the last 2 years. And so, okay, to respect everyone's time, in summary, we appreciate the committee's difficult but critical job to review a ton of information, evaluate risks, make recommendations. But given what we know, that we cannot eliminate risk, that the Navy cannot think of everything that can go wrong, and then if things do go wrong in the worst way, the harms would be catastrophic, like existential. We urge you to recognize this situation is untenable and make your recommendations accordingly. And in the end, the Navy will ultimately do what they want based on their own self-perception of omniscience, but we urge you, don't let them do it with your blessing. Don't tie your names and your recommendations to their shortcomings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. So the next person is Dave. I'm sorry, I don't have a last name or anything. But they requested in the chat.
Dave Mullinex, perhaps? Is that me?
Yes, Dave, go ahead.
This is Dave. Okay, yeah, Dave Mullinex. So it's obvious that the Navy has no intention of moving the fuel tanks, that they're doing everything they can to stonewall. My concern here is that they keep using national security against the citizenry. National security means the defense of the nation, including its citizens, economy, and institutions. And by putting this fuel tanks above the main water supply, that is not protecting the citizenry of the state of Hawaii. So my question is to the Navy, is how is this incompatibility? How we rationalize this incompatibility? Your number one priority is to protect the citizens, and by allowing these fuel tanks to have the potential of permanently contaminating our drinking water, that is not in line with national security. So I have that question for
you. Was that a comment or a question? I'm not sure I understood.
It's a question because it is incompatible, and I'm wondering how the Navy justifies
Dave, can you
using.
state your question really clearly? Because I didn't. It was a little muddled.
All right. Well, sorry about that. My question is, how does the Navy reconcile? It's supposed to be for national security, and yet they're risking the health and safety of the majority of the people of the state of Hawaii on their drinking water. How is that compatible with national security?
Okay, thank you. I got it now. Gordy, you want to respond to that very briefly? I'm holding you to 2 minutes too, so.
Sure, yes. And so to the specific question, how are we sacrificing the people of Hawaii for the strategic national defense? And I'd say we are not, and we don't have to sacrifice one for the other. We can do both. We can protect the environment, we can protect the people of Hawaii, and we can protect our nation and Department of Health, Department of Defense with our strategic imperatives. And so we can do all of those things through the Red Hill and the work and initiatives that we are doing. And so it's not a matter of one or the other. There's also been some comments on why the Navy is waiting until 2045 to do secondary containment. We are doing that now. We're not waiting for 2045. And as my brief laid out, the important schedule that we are working to implement that as soon as possible. And there's been several comments about the leaking tanks. Again, the tanks have gone through tank tightness testing, and there are no tanks leaking. Thanks.
Back to you. Who else is next in line?
Rebecca Garrison, please. Rebecca with the K.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Garrison, and I'm a water drinker, and I call Oahu home. I agree with the chorus of voices around the island that moving the tanks and saving the island's primary water source is much safer than playing Russian roulette with our water supply. It does not take a rocket scientist or commanding officer to know that we, the people, those who fund the military through our tax dollars, demand that our lives too be protected. That includes access to safe drinking water. Or do our lives not matter? If the military is really here to protect America and Hawaii, then part of their mission includes protecting us, and by extension, our clean water. Coming from a military family, I do not understand how an antiquated system of underground storage tanks sitting a mere 100 feet above this precious resource serves and protects the island's community. At no point has the military been pressed by any federal, state, or city entity to provide mitigation plans in the event of a catastrophic release of fuel that will contaminate all of our lives. That is absurd. The military has already allowed over 180,000 gallons of fuel to be released through leaks and human error into the environment at and around Red Hill. And imagine, 180,000 gallons is a conservative estimate, as many of these recorded releases are listed as unknown quantities. As a community, we demand more accountability from the military, the Department of Health, the Board of Water Supply, and federal, state, and city officials. Demanding the relocation of the Red Hill tanks is not reinventing the wheel, but following a precedent that the Navy has already initiated in California and Washington. Why not do the same in Hawaii? Or do our lives matter less than those on the continent? Why must island lives always be the sacrificial lamb for the US military? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next?
I have a Pete, and I'm sorry, I don't have the last name either. Pete?
Aloha, it's Doctor. Mahalo and Aloha Aina community and committee. I'm a concerned veteran and parent and homeowner in Moanalua. I'm not the only military veteran that's concerned about Kapukaki or Red Hill. In 2020, a veteran organization, Veterans for Peace, passed a resolution at its 2020 annual convention. I guess you guys can't see it, it's okay. Calling for the priority of protecting the aquifer underneath the tanks due to concerns that would take well over 2 minutes to list. So I'm just going to focus on one concerns. The dominant claim by the militarists is Red Hill is critical for, quote, national security. How can national security trump the public health and safety of the people, as well as our livelihoods and the livability of our community? Are you suggesting that protecting political and economic interests, such as projecting and protecting markets, is paramount to the people for whom the military purportedly protects? It goes without saying, but apparently it needs to be said that there is a reason the US Republic framers clearly established the primacy of civilian leadership over military affairs. We resent all the leadership that suggests the US should follow other nations like Burma or Sudan by posturing the military and their concerns should reign supreme over the people. We Veterans for Peace find this and the cover-ups conduct unbecoming. Any definition of national security that overrides a genuine security by its definition counter to the principles of a democratic republic, which the military and enabling political leadership are guilty of, and themselves the threat to our national security in terms of undermining our political integrity. So as a parent and former medic and teacher, I would like to know how the Navy finds justified that we live everyday concern for our kids, that today might be the day that there's another leak that even Navy studies acknowledge as inevitable, and that you are probably our most direct existential threat right now. So in closing,
you're at 2 minutes.
Thank you, Pete. Thanks so much.
I was going to let my third grade daughter explain her concerns, because apparently third grader gets it more than some of the adults. Thank you for your time. Aloha.
Thank you. Who's next, too?
We have Ron. Ron?
Yes, hi. Yes, good morning. My name is Ron Menor, and I am a former member of the Honolulu City Council. I'm submitting testimony as a concerned citizen to lend my support to the efforts of environmental and community advocates in calling for the Navy to shut down the Red Hill facility and relocate the fuel storage away from the community's drinking water supply. My testimony today is consistent with the position that I took on this issue, and as a member of the Honolulu City Council in 2019, I joined my colleagues on the council in strongly supporting and voting for the adoption of Resolution 19270 CD1, which among other things urged relocation of the fuel tanks as a preferred option. The reasons for the council's adoption of the resolution remain as compelling today as they were at the time of the resolution's adoption. The operation of the Red Hill facility continues to pose a significant threat to Oahu's drinking water supply. As we know, since its construction, thousands of gallons of fuel have leaked from the Red Hill facility into the surrounding environment. That leaks from the fuel tanks remain a recurring problem, should concern everyone. Problems relating to the age of the Red Hill facility, the extensive corrosion that has occurred, the legitimate concerns that have been raised about the inadequacy of the Navy's plans to update tank structure to ensure protection of our water, and the continued leaking of the tanks indicate a real risk exists for significant release of fuel that would contaminate the southern Oahu basal aquifer. The position taken by the Department of Health, Environmental Health Administration, and the ongoing contested case hearing on the Navy's permit application reflects this concern. This is a hazard we simply cannot allow to continue, given that the aquifer serves as the primary drinking water source for over 400,000 residents and visitors from Alava to Hawaii Kai. Furthermore, recent revelations that more than 1,600 gallons of fuel leaked from Red Hill pipelines into Pearl Harbor last year, and of safety violations at the Red Hill facility have further eroded public confidence in the Navy's ability to effectively manage its fuel storage infrastructure. Finally,
thank you, Rob. You're at 2 minutes.
Yes, I just want to add that regulators should also give considerable weight to the recommendations of the Board of Water Supply, which joined the Sierra Club in challenging the Navy's permit applications, since that agency possesses the expertise and is tasked with the responsibility to protect our island's drinking water. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Ron.
Thanks, Ron. I'm going to squeeze in Melanie Lau for a quick question, and then we also have 2 more oral testimony, and we'll probably carry us over a little bit over past the time, but we have time. Go ahead, Melanie.
Thanks. I have a question actually for the representatives of our congressional delegation, because I know they're on here, Dale Hahn for Schatz and Carlos Santana and Jackie Conant, and I'm sorry, I don't remember Kai Kahele's representative. My question is, what is your take on all of this? And are we, because 2 of them are members of their appropriation committees for the House and the Senate, are we going to get money appropriated for studying relocation, for actually building tanks somewhere else? Thank you. I would like to hear from the 4 of them. Thank you.
Comments? Jackie? Carlos?
Hi, yeah, this is Jackie. Sorry, I kind of missed your question. Was it because, did you talk about the funding, the appropriations?
I guess I would like to know Representative Case's take on all of this. I mean, are they buying the Navy's argument that it's fine just where it is, or are they actually listening that people are afraid for their health and they really would like to have the tanks relocated?
We've been hearing,
and if there's funding for, because he's on the appropriation committee, right?
Yeah. Okay. So on the funding part, the congressman was able to, in FY21, we have $5 million for them to do research on the tanks, and then in FY22, there's stuff that's coming up on the NDAA to enhance the inspection system that they use. And that's what we have with regards to what Congress is doing on the NDAA portion of it. I can speak to that.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what NDAA is. What is that?
That's a national defense funding that goes to
the National
military.
Defense Authorization Act.
Yes. Thank you.
So similarly, Senator Schatz has supported funding for the Navy to make upgrades, to do research, to do mitigation efforts.
So it sounds like upgrades and mitigation efforts, but not even entertaining the thought of relocating away from the aquifer.
I wouldn't say specifically so, but to continue to do research.
Suyan Xie, I'm a professor of international law, and my major.
Excuse me, can you please wait a moment? We're not finished here. Thank you. Thank you.
You want me to wait?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I will wait.
Thank you. So Dale and Jackie, and I don't know if Carlos, if you want to speak to this too. Melanie was asking if there is a position, and it sounds like the position is to support further oversight and enable funding wherever that's possible for the continuing efforts. Am I right? Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, this is Carlos. Thank you for the opportunity. You know, Senator Hirono supports the work of the AOC as a binding document, and of this committee as well, as a way to inform the community. But as far as relocating, whatever is the best practical option. If relocating has to be done, then we'll look at that in the future. But right now, it's more oversight that needs to be done and clear and transparent communication with the community.
Okay. Thank you for that. And let's go back to you. Who's left? And Susie, we'll let you come in a little later on when we're done with the others.
So we have 4 people. I'm not sure we're going to get to all of them, but Sam, Anna, Manuel, and then Susie.
And please summarize your comments if you can, in the interest of time.
Okay, hi, my name is Sam. I was born and raised in the Ahupua'a of Kalihi, which means that for my entire life, I have received my drinking water from the aquifer that has been and continues to be actively threatened by the leaking tanks at Red Hill. Not just me, but nearly everyone and every place in my life that I have ever loved or held dear has been sustained by the water from this aquifer. I know that I am by no means exceptional in this regard, and that what I said applies to so many people here today. As this is an ongoing catastrophe that deeply implicates all of us, whether we like it or not. And if you've been listening, you know that none of us like it. The military has actively endangered the people of Hawaii for over 100 years. We have seen time and again the consequences of what the late Haunani K. Trask has called the ultimate injury of becoming strategically important in the game of superpower politics. Hawaii has suffered too long, too much in imperial politics. In solidarity with the Hawaiian people, I do not recognize settler state governance as the proper caretakers of this Aina. But at the very same time, I find it difficult to comprehend how the people in positions of power have failed to act according to the principles they have set for themselves. Article 11, Section 7 of the Hawaii State Constitution is very clear. It states, the state has an obligation to protect, control, and regulate the use of Hawaii's water resources for the benefit of its people. Nearly 180,000 gallons of petroleum fuel has leaked since these tanks were put in the ground 80 years ago. And as Becca noted, this is a conservative estimate. Red Hill does not need to be improved, as the Navy has said today, just shut down. All Navy representatives here, Captain Horniak, Captain Meyer, Admiral Cott, you need to be held accountable for the danger you are putting all of us in. How dare the Navy perpetuate this violence for this long, and how dare the Navy lie about it and mislead the people for optics. Move the tanks. All state representatives, it's your responsibility to ensure that the Navy takes all the steps necessary to protect the water supply that sustains us all. Fines by itself are not enough. Every day that passes that Red Hill still operates, you are actively threatening the well-being of the people of Hawaii, and it is really just that simple. Those 180,000 gallons. Okay, can't be unspilled, but it's not too late for you to do the right and just and obvious thing before an even greater catastrophe is upon us. Move the tanks.
Thank you. Back to you.
Nachua, please. Anna.
Yeah, my name is Anna. I'm a resident of Mo'iliili, and I support the immediate shutdown of the Red Hill tanks. So to me, 2037, 2045 doesn't really matter. Waiting one more year is ridiculous. I'm currently 21 years old, and 2045 is 24 years away. So that to me is unacceptable to be waiting that long. And in the past year, just 1 year, we've learned that through soil vapor monitoring, that past releases of toxic chemicals have reached the base of aquifer. We witnessed a big leak in May, and we found out that the Navy lied and misled us about an active leak for months. And on top of that, even though the Navy says that one of their goals is to protect Hawaii's communities, just from today's meeting, we've seen that we're literally living in fear of our water being poisoned. And so that to me is antithetical to safety. So when Captain Meyer says that we don't have to pick just one between national security or water security, that to me is exactly what they're doing. And so my question is, just in this meeting, we've learned that we can't purely rely on the Navy to investigate, remediate, etc. So why aren't there any non-military or non-military affiliated entities doing research regarding the tanks and the leaks and so on? Thank you.
Thank you. I want to see if there's a response to your question. either from EPA, GOH, or the Navy or GLA? Any quick response?
Why they're not non.
Hey, this is Captain Meyer, and so I will say that we work with other entities besides DoD. Obviously, working with the University of Hawaii, and the investigation that was recently completed from the May 6th event was done by a third-party American Petroleum Institute engineering firm that looked at it from a third-party point of view. And we always look to incorporate all other viewpoints to make sure we always do the right thing at Red Hill.
Okay, thank you. Two, back to you, our list.
Okay, we have two more people. Manuel?
So may I talk?
No, there's other people in line.
Okay, aloha. My major research work is.
Can you please hold? We have somebody else who's ready to speak, and they had actually gotten themselves in the line. So if you don't mind, Susie, I promise I'll call on you.
I will.
A little later.
Yes.
Is Manuel there?
Hello, Mr. Adler, can you hear me?
Yes.
30 years ago, U.S. President George Herbert Walker Bush stopped the bombing of Kaho'olawe Island. I've been to many meetings as a young man with U.S. Navy admirals, captains. At the time, it was called SINCPAC. Then it became PACOM. Now it's INDOPAC. I'm listening today and I'm testifying because I was born and raised in the island of Maui, value water. I have two children that now live in Honolulu. I've read the reports by Captain Delau dated February 15, 2019. Your IMF testing labs that talked about coupons A1, TAC 4 being 49.0% thickness left over at a 122.4 mils. Coupon 3 TAC 2 at 50.1%. And coupon 3 TAC 3 being at 52.0% left. Today, sir, United States Admirals, thank you for your service, but I'm concerned. When Mr. Lau says he's not getting that notifications from the EPA, you need to do it. Ms. Char, you need to do it. I'm thinking about being sent to Nevada as a representative with an attorney general from the state of Hawaii and a representative of the Kaho'olawe Island Reserve Commission to Reno, Nevada. A Western Governors Conference called Tribal Acceptance of Innovative Technologies. Navy, we can do better. You taught me to do better as a quality assurance manager under your auspices. To see a failed tightness test hurts.
Thank you, Manuel. You're at 2 minutes.
There's no checklist. There's no SOP. There was no oversight. And if I gotta find out that the Navy is lying, it hurts. It's all about trust. So please make it happen. I'm thinking about Patsy Mink. What would she do if she was here today? And I learned from her husband, Mr. Mink, about the Guyben-Herzberg lens. Oahu, you deserve better. Thank you, Mr.
Manuel.
Adler.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey, Susie, you're up. Susie?
So may I talk now?
Yes.
My major research work is nuclear arms control. And the purpose was to bring the security and safety for the world. So let's start it from Hawaii. And from my 30 years of research experience, I understand what happened RCA in Taiwan, when the toxic chemical get into the water, into the soil, it took 50 years to solve the legal problem. I was a young student, and when they solved the problem, I was a retired professor. So now, even 2014 in West Virginia, I live right there. When the water got toxic chemical, then the whole town, the biggest town, Charleston, was locked down. And even days, week after, when they have water, it took 2 months, 3 months for water to discard the smell. So people so much, and I hope our Navy will understand when the crisis starts, it will take forever to solve the problem. So, and I don't like you to have us come every year, once a year, to just report how you investigating, how you repair, how you testing. Instead of spending all those millions of dollars for wasting, you just build a new tanks and solve the problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susie. Thanks for being patient.
Okay, my fault, I think. Marty Townsend? Did you want to speak? Sorry about that.
No problem. I put my comments in the chat, but I will just reiterate that as many people have highlighted, the Navy cannot control everything that makes the Red Hill fuel tanks an existential threat to life on Oahu. And for that reason alone, the tanks need to be permanently retired and the fuel relocated. One of the things that has not been brought up yet today is earthquakes and the risk of earthquakes. The Navy just sidesteps that. Their risk assessment sidesteps that. And we've had earthquakes in the past that did trigger leaks from the Red Hill Fuels facility. And we need to take that risk seriously. And I think it just adds to the importance of all of the long list that has been presented here today. And I thank this committee for taking the time and effort to do this work. And I urge you all to move from a position of just taking in information and being an educational opportunity to actually taking a position. And if you could take a position that helps direct the next steps towards prioritizing our water over the Navy's convenient access to fuel, I think the people of Oahu would be forever indebted to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty. Sue, is there anybody else who's in the line in the queue here?
We had some small questions in the chat, but we're just going to leave it at that, I think, Peter.
Okay.
We're getting kind of short on time.
We're close to 12 o'clock, although I'm committed to staying until the last person has said the last thing with their last breath. So I want to just see if there's any other short questions that people have. Not long comments here. We don't have that time, but are there any brief questions that you want to bring up? Especially from the Fuel Tank Advisory Committee, because this is their committee. Okay.
You want to talk? Go ahead.
Bernie, go ahead.
My heart is touched. I've listened to the testimony of the people that attended this meeting virtually. I wish we could do it in person, but I just want to say mahalo to all of you because our drinking water aquifer, it's something that we depend on for our lives, but it has no voice. So it takes all of us working together to be the voice for this resource, to preserve and protect this valuable resource for our community. So mahalo, everybody. I really thank you.
Thank you for that good thought. Thank you for that very much. Anybody else, especially from the committee? Okay, I'm going to.
Oh, here, sorry.
Melody, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Peter, for recognizing me. I asked this actually at the last meeting, and it was with regards to a RIMPAC. My question at that time was how much fuel is actually used to supply RIMPAC, because they're going to be due again next year. And I'd hate to think that most of the fuel then is going to be used for RIMPAC exercises. So I believe we were supposed to get an answer and I did not get one. So hopefully there'd be an answer today.
Captain Meyer or Captain Honyak, does the Red Hill facility provide fuel for RIMPAC? And are you able to just tell us how much? You're on mute.
Thank you, Peter. So yes, when RIMPAC does occur, we do provide fuel to the RIMPAC vessels. As to the particular amounts, I cannot provide that information, but it is in line with the normal usage of the facility. Thank you.
And should we presume that's confidential information or not disclosable? What should we assume about that? Just for clarification, so we're understanding each other.
Yeah, as a rule, the Navy does not release the quantities of fuel that we issue on a regular basis.
Okay, fair enough. We got it. Asked and answered. Melody, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Yep.
Peter,
Who's saying Peter? Yes.
Peter,
Kathy.
this is Kathy.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for your participation in this committee, but also I wanted to I wanted to clarify a comment that was orally made. There is someone who's talking. I think his name is.
Yeah. Could everybody else please mute themselves? Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, what I wanted to say was someone mentioned that the reporting of a release is 90 days. I just wanted to clarify that under 128D, which is the Environmental Response Revolving Law, which is the state Superfund law, oil is a hazardous substance, and it is the reporting requirement is 24 hours upon discovery, and that is similar to UST. So we should, within 24 hours of discovery, we, the regulators, should be notified of any releases of oil or hazardous substance pollutants or contaminants. Thank you.
Somebody's making, there's a lot of background. Got Kyle.
In addition, the latest groundwater monitoring report is on the DOH website.
Kyle, brief question or a brief comment, because we're at the hour.
Thank you. I was wondering if there were alternate groundwater modeling studies being done with second opinions or differing opinions from the one that the Navy produced. And also if there were alternate engineering studies done about the viability of relocating the tanks, such as like we haven't heard from the Defense Logistics Agency. Do they have a different position on where the tanks are and what sort of infrastructure is needed for the fuel? Thank you.
Captain's response?
Sure, I'll address the question on the DLA and the distribution. And so as we talked about previously, Indo-PACOM has done a fuel study on what's required within the area of operations to ensure our national defense. That report did not include specific numbers of locations. And so hence the requirements remain the same today where we're at here in Hawaii.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring us to a close. I just want to say thank you to everybody, all of our presenters who put a lot of time into this, preparing, whether it's Navy, DOH, EPA, and I also thank all of you for your patience and tolerance. These are really tough issues, tough questions, and I appreciate that. And why don't you say a word about our next meeting?
Yeah, so I just wanted to also say that, again, we're going to try to get all these presentations, the recording of this, the entire meeting within a week at our website. So please be patient with us. Also, I've already received like 7 written comments. So if we will continue to accept comments through November 21st, email me. And then all those comments plus the ones that have been chatted will also be included in the report to the ledge. Our next meeting is slated for 6 months from now. We're looking at the end of Hawaii State Legislative Session, which would be the end of April, early May.
Terrific, Tu, thank you. I also want to thank Tu and Megan for their great support and help on this. Thank you so much. This is a complex meeting, a lot of people. There's still 150 people on here, but thank you so much. We're going to end the meeting and again, submit your further written testimonies and questions and comments. Thank you, everybody, for spending time with us today. Bye-bye.
Thank you.